Does it ever feel like your to-do list is a living thing, constantly growing new limbs, while your inbox becomes a bottomless pit of demands? You are not alone in that feeling. In our hyper-connected, always-on world, a low hum of anxiety has become the background noise for so many of us. It is the frantic pace, the endless notifications, the pressure to perform and to present a perfect life, all culminating in a sense that we are perpetually behind, perpetually falling short. We spend so much of our mental energy trying to control the uncontrollable, from global events to other people's opinions, and in the process, we feel our own inner peace slipping through our fingers. But what if the key to quieting that noise, to finding a profound and unshakable calm, was not a new app or a complex therapy, but a philosophy that is over 2,000 years old? This is the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, and it offers what might be the most powerful antidote to modern stress ever devised. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who ruled one of the most powerful empires in history while facing constant war and political intrigue, wrote these words to himself in his private journal: "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Just let that sink in for a moment. Here was a man who shouldered unimaginable burdens, yet he understood that his ultimate freedom lay not in changing the world around him, but in mastering his perceptions of it. This is the profound secret at the heart of Stoic philosophy. It is not about suppressing emotion or leading a joyless life. It is about building an inner citadel of peace so resilient that no external storm can shake it. It is about cultivating a quality the Stoics called equanimity, a steady, balanced mind that meets fortune and misfortune with the same unwavering clarity. In this video, we are going on a journey to uncover the specific, practical secrets these ancient philosophers used to achieve this state. We will explore how you can apply their principles to disarm the stress of your daily life, from the frustration of a traffic jam to the anxiety of a financial worry. We will delve into powerful mental exercises like the premeditation of challenges and the view from above that can fundamentally rewire your relationship with adversity. These are not abstract academic ideas, they are tools for living, and they have never been more relevant than they are right now. We are going to learn how to distinguish between what is within our control and what is not, how to transform obstacles into fuel for our growth, and how to find a deep and lasting contentment that does not depend on the ever-changing circumstances of the outside world. This is an invitation to discover how you too can cultivate an unshakable mind. This foundational Stoic principle is arguably the single most powerful tool for eliminating anxiety, and it all begins with a simple, profound distinction. At the very core of Stoic philosophy lies what is known as the dichotomy of control. The idea is beautifully straightforward, yet its application is utterly transformative. It teaches us to sort every single event, circumstance, and thought in our lives into one of two baskets. In one basket, we place the things that are within our complete control. In the other, we place everything that is not. The ancient teacher Epictetus, who was born a slave and yet became one of history's most influential philosophers, laid it out with perfect clarity in his handbook, the Enchiridion. He wrote, "Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing." Let's break that down into modern terms. What is truly, authentically within your control? Your thoughts, your judgments, your values, your efforts, and your actions. You control whether you decide to be diligent or lazy. You control whether you interpret a critical comment as a personal attack or as potentially useful feedback. You control your desire to be a kinder person or to learn a new skill. That is your sovereign territory. Now, what is categorically not within your control? The weather, the traffic, the stock market, what other people say about you. Whether you get that promotion, the past, the future, the actions and opinions of everyone around you, this is the vast, unpredictable external world. And here is the source of so much of our modern stress. We exhaust ourselves by trying to command this second basket. We fret over our online reputation. We rage against a flight delay. We lose sleep worrying about a future event that may never happen. We are, in effect, trying to control an ocean's waves with a teacup, and then we feel frustrated and defeated when it doesn't work. Think about a common daily frustration. Being stuck in a terrible traffic jam when you have an important meeting. Your heart starts racing, you grip the steering wheel, you curse the other drivers, you refresh the map app hoping for a miracle. All of this mental and emotional energy is being poured directly into the basket of things you cannot control. You cannot control the accident ahead, you cannot control the red light, you cannot make the cars in front of you disappear. What is within your control? You can control your judgment about the situation. Instead of labeling it a catastrophe, you can label it an inconvenience. You can control your actions. You can call your office to let them know you'll be late. You can control your motivation. You can use the time to listen to an audiobook or practice some deep breathing. The event itself is neutral. It is your internal struggle against reality that creates the suffering. This principle applies just as powerfully to the digital world. Consider the sting of a negative comment on a social media post you worked hard on. Your initial reaction might be anger, defensiveness, or a hit to your self-esteem. You are trying to control that person's opinion, which you cannot do. What you can control is your judgment of their comment. Is it true? Is it useful? Is it merely a reflection of their own bad day? You can control your desire for universal approval, recognizing that it's an impossible and exhausting goal. You can control your action. You can choose not to engage in a fruitless online argument. By shifting your focus from the uncontrollable external to the controllable internal, you disarm the comment of its power to ruin your hour or your day. The stress doesn't vanish because the world became perfect. It vanishes because you stopped fighting a battle you were never going to win. So, here is a small but powerful exercise. Take a moment and think of 3 things that caused you significant stress this past week. Now, mentally place each one into its proper basket. Was it something within your control, like your preparation for a project? Or was it something outside your control, like the final outcome of that project? Just this act of sorting can bring an immediate, almost surprising sense of relief. What if you could not just endure, but genuinely love everything that happens to you? Not just the pleasant surprises and the windfalls, but the flat tires, the missed opportunities, the painful rejections, and the unexpected setbacks. This is not a fantasy or a form of delusional optimism. It is the radical Stoic practice known as Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. This powerful concept was central to the philosophy of Marcus Aurelius, who constantly reminded himself to embrace whatever the universal nature brought his way. Centuries later, the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, deeply inspired by Stoic thought, would famously write, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it but love it. This is a world away from passive resignation. It is not about gritting your teeth and saying, "Well, I suppose I have to accept this." It is an active, dynamic, and creative embrace of reality. It is about looking at every single event, especially the difficult ones, and saying, "This too is for my benefit. This is the raw material I have been given to work with, and I will use it to build something stronger and more beautiful." Marcus Aurelius captured this transformative power with a stunning metaphor. He wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." Imagine that. A weak, smoldering fire is extinguished by a log that is too large or too damp. But a blazing, intense fire consumes it all. The gnarled branch, the wet leaves, the old scrap wood, and turns it all into pure, brilliant heat and light. Amor Fati is the practice of stoking your inner fire so powerfully that you can metabolize any obstacle, any hardship, and use it as fuel for your own growth and illumination. Let's make this practical. Consider a professional setback you might have faced. Perhaps a project you poured your heart into was suddenly cancelled, or you were passed over for a promotion you felt you deserved. The conventional reaction is disappointment, frustration, maybe even bitterness. You might ruminate on the unfairness of it all, wasting precious mental energy fighting a reality that cannot be changed. Now apply Amor Fati. Actively look for how this event, as painful as it is, could be a necessary and even beneficial part of your journey. Did the cancelled project free up your time and energy for an even better opportunity that was just around the corner? Did failing to get that promotion reveal a weakness in your skill set that you can now address, making you a far more capable professional in the long run? Did it force you to re-evaluate what you truly want from your career, leading you to a path that is more aligned with your core values? By loving this fate, you are not saying the event was good in itself. You are asserting your power to make it good by finding the value hidden within it. This reframing turns you from a passive victim of circumstance into the active author of your life story. The obstacle is no longer a roadblock, it becomes the road itself. A serious illness can become a profound teacher of what is truly important in life. The end of a relationship can become the catalyst for deep personal growth and self-discovery that would never have happened otherwise. A financial loss can force a simplification of your life that ultimately brings you more peace and contentment than the money ever did. The practice is to consciously search for the gift, however well disguised, in every difficulty. So, here is a challenge for you. Bring to mind one recent difficulty, a source of frustration or pain from your own life. It doesn't have to be a massive tragedy. Start with a common annoyance. Now brainstorm, how could this event, seen from a different angle, actually be a gift? What strength did it force you to develop? What clarity did it bring? What unnecessary attachment did it loosen? By engaging in this mental exercise, you are not being naive. You are performing the alchemy of Amor Fati, training your mind to find the fuel for your inner fire in the very things you once believed were meant to extinguish it. Now, let's try a different kind of mental exercise, one that can dramatically shift your entire perspective in a matter of moments. I want you to mentally zoom out from whatever is bothering you right now. Zoom out from the room you're in, from your neighborhood, from your city. Keep going until you see the entire Earth from space, a beautiful, fragile blue marble hanging in the vast, silent blackness. Now zoom out further, past the moon, past our solar system, until our sun is just one star among hundreds of billions in the Milky Way galaxy. And then continue until our galaxy itself is just one tiny speck of light in an unimaginably vast cosmic web. This is the essence of the Stoic practice known as the view from above. and it was a meditation frequently used by Marcus Aurelius to ground himself amidst the immense pressures of leading the Roman Empire. He would deliberately contemplate the sheer scale of the universe and the brief, fleeting whisper of a human life within it. In his meditations, he wrote, "Remember how long you've been putting this off, how many times you've been given a reprieve by the gods and not used it. Now you must finally recognize the universe you are a part of and the power that governs it from within. Your time has a limit set to it. Use it then to advance your enlightenment, or it will be gone and never in your power again." He isn't being morbid here. He is providing a powerful antidote to anxiety and a swollen ego. When you feel the heat of embarrassment after a minor social gaffe, or the simmering anger over a perceived professional slight, this exercise reveals those concerns for what they truly are: tiny, temporary dramas on a nearly infinitesimal stage. Your worries, your ambitions, your very sense of self are all contained on that tiny, distant blue dot. This realization doesn't make your life meaningless. On the contrary, it liberates you. It strips away the self-importance that magnifies every minor inconvenience into a catastrophe, allowing you to see your problems at their actual, manageable size. For a powerful modern parallel, just think about looking at a map of the world on your phone. You can pinch and zoom from a view of the entire globe down to the very street where you live. Your home, your workplace, the coffee shop you go to every morning, they are all contained within that one tiny, pixelated dot representing your city. All of your daily routines, your urgent errands, and your personal stresses are happening right there, in that one speck on the map. The view from above is the psychological equivalent of zooming all the way out to that global view. The argument you had with a colleague, the worry about an upcoming bill, the stress of a messy house, they haven't vanished, but they have been recontextualized. They are now small parts of a much, much larger whole. This shift in perspective is incredibly effective at reducing anxiety because it directly counteracts our innate tendency to make ourselves the center of the universe. It humbles the ego and connects you to something grander, replacing a feeling of frantic isolation with a sense of serene belonging. The next time you feel overwhelmed by a situation, whether it's a looming deadline or a personal conflict, I invite you to try this mental exercise. Close your eyes for just 30 seconds, take a deep breath, and in your mind's eye, pull the camera back. See your building from above, then your town, then your country. Watch the planet shrink until it's a pale blue dot, as the astronomer Carl Sagan called it, a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. From that cosmic vantage point, look back at your current problem. How big does it feel now? How permanent does it seem against the backdrop of billions of years and trillions of stars? This isn't about dismissing your feelings, but about giving them the appropriate amount of mental and emotional space. It creates a buffer between you and your reactive thoughts, providing the clarity you need to address your challenges from a place of calm strength rather than from a state of overwhelmed panic. Now let's turn to a practice that might seem counterintuitive at first, but is one of the most powerful psychological tools the Stoics ever developed. They didn't avoid thinking about bad things, they actively and deliberately rehearsed them. This is known as Premeditatio Malorum, or the premeditation of evils. It is the disciplined practice of negative visualization, of vividly imagining the loss of the things we hold dear, our possessions, our social status, our health, even our loved ones. At first glance, this sounds like a recipe for anxiety and depression. Why would you willingly dwell on such painful possibilities? The Stoic answer is profound. It is not to breed fear, but to disarm it. By mentally walking through the very scenarios we dread, we accomplish two crucial things. We forge a deep and resilient gratitude for what we have right now, and we build a kind of emotional preparedness that immunizes us against the shocks of fortune when they inevitably come. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a Stoic who navigated the extreme wealth and political peril of Emperor Nero's court, explained this principle with brilliant clarity. He wrote, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." In another letter, he put it even more strikingly, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared? This is the secret.'" Rehearsing poverty in your mind, truly feeling what it would be like to lose your financial security, doesn't make you poor. In a very real sense, it makes you rich. It makes you rich with appreciation for the food on your table and the roof over your head. It reveals that your core self, your ability to reason and to endure, remains intact even without those external comforts. You are rehearsing your own invincibility. Let's make this practical with a modern example. Take a few moments and truly walk through the mental exercise of imagining you've lost your job. Don't just gloss over the idea, lean into it. Picture the meeting with your manager, the feeling of shock, the immediate worry about bills and your future. Sit with that discomfort for a moment. Now continue the narrative. What would you do next? You would update your resume. You would reach out to your network. You would cut non-essential expenses. You might have to take a different, perhaps less prestigious job for a while. You would discover which of your friends are truly there for you. The crucial Stoic shift here is to realize that the catastrophe isn't in the event itself, but in our belief that we cannot handle it. This exercise proves to you in advance that you can handle it. You still have your skills, your resourcefulness, and your capacity for hard work. The job was always a preferred indifferent, something nice to have, but your resilience and character are your true goods, and those cannot be taken from you by any corporate decision. This practice transforms our relationship with the people and things we love from one of clinging attachment to one of profound, mindful appreciation. We so often move through our lives taking our relationships, our health, and our comforts for granted, operating under the unspoken assumption that they will always be there. Premeditatio Malorum shatters that illusion of permanence. It doesn't do this to make us live in fear, but to make us wake up to the incredible gift of the present moment. When you consciously contemplate the fact that a loved one will not be with you forever, you don't become morbid, you become more present with them, you listen more carefully. You express your affection more freely, you waste less time on petty arguments, you see the ordinary, daily moments with them as the extraordinary blessings they truly are. The temporary nature of everything is not a curse. It is the very thing that gives our experiences their preciousness. So, here is a small but profound prompt for you to try right now. Bring to mind something you cherish deeply. It could be your relationship with a family member, the health of your body, the home you live in, or even the device you're using to watch this. Now, instead of pushing the thought away, gently hold it in your mind. This is temporary. It will not always be here. How does that change your perception of it right now? Does the conversation you had with that person today feel more significant? Does the comfort of your home feel more like a sanctuary? Does the simple ability to breathe easily feel like a miracle? This is the true purpose of Premeditatio Malorum. It is a deliberate, sober, and immensely powerful practice of pulling the future into the present, not to suffer in advance, but to rob future suffering of its power and to fill our current lives with a depth of gratitude that makes us truly, unshakably rich. Now let's explore a concept that can fundamentally change your relationship with your own mind. We often operate under a hidden assumption, a belief so ingrained we rarely question it. We believe that our thoughts are reality. That when we think I'm going to fail, or that person dislikes me, or this situation is a catastrophe, we are simply reporting objective facts. But the Stoics discovered a profound psychological truth 2 millennia ago. Our thoughts are not facts. They are merely impressions, interpretations, and often highly unreliable ones at that. This realization is the heart of a powerful practice known as cognitive distancing, and it is absolutely essential for breaking the endless cycle of reactive stress that so many of us find ourselves trapped in. The great teacher Epictetus, whose words form the bedrock of Stoic psychology, laid out this principle with breathtaking simplicity. He said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." Just pause and consider the immense freedom contained in that single sentence. The traffic jam itself does not create your stress. It is your judgment that the traffic jam is a terrible, unjust inconvenience that ruins your morning. The critical email from your boss is not, in itself, the source of your anxiety. It is your interpretation of that email as a threat to your job security and your self-worth. The event is neutral. It is the story we tell ourselves about the event that generates the emotional storm. Cognitive distancing is the practice of learning to insert a tiny, crucial pause between the event and your story about it, a space where you can step back and observe your own thinking process without being swept away by it. Think of your mind as a movie screen, and your thoughts are the images projected onto it. Most of the time, we are so absorbed in the drama of the movie, the plot twists, the scary moments, the tragic scenes, that we forget we are merely sitting in the audience. We forget that the images on the screen are not real, they are just light and shadow. Cognitive distancing is the practice of remembering that you are the one watching the movie, not a character trapped inside it. You are the awareness in the seat, and you can observe the frightening scene unfold without needing to scream and run for the exit. This shift from being a prisoner of your thoughts to being an observer of them is one of the most liberating skills you can ever develop. So how do we actually do this in the heat of the moment, when a stressful thought arises and threatens to hijack your entire nervous system? There is a remarkably simple yet potent linguistic tool you can use. When you notice a negative or anxious thought bubbling up, simply prefix it with the phrase, "I am having the thought that." For example, instead of the thought being, "I'm going to embarrass myself during this presentation," you consciously reframe it as, "I am having the thought that I'm going to embarrass myself during this presentation." This might seem like a small, almost trivial change in wording, but its psychological impact is profound. That simple phrase creates instant separation. It takes the thought out of the realm of absolute truth and places it in the realm of a temporary mental event, one of many that will pass through your mind today. You are no longer fused with the thought, you are now relating to it. You are acknowledging its presence without having to obey its command. Let's apply this to a common modern stressor, the fear of social judgment. Imagine you're about to walk into a party where you don't know many people. An automatic thought arises, "No one here is going to like me. I'm going to be awkward and stand alone all night." If you believe that thought as a fact, your body will respond with anxiety. Your palms might sweat, your heart might race, and you'll likely enter the room with a defensive, closed-off energy that actually makes it harder to connect with people. Now apply cognitive distancing. Notice the thought and label it. I am having the thought that no one here will like me. This immediately softens the thought's power. It becomes one possibility among many, not a guaranteed prophecy. It allows you to then question it. Is that truly accurate? Is it possible that some people might be interesting to talk to? Could my perception of awkwardness just be normal nervousness? By creating this space, you reclaim your ability to choose your response, rather than being a puppet controlled by an automatic and often unkind mental habit. This practice is not about suppressing thoughts or forcing yourself to think positively. It is about changing your relationship with your thinking altogether. It is about developing a kind of mindful skepticism toward your own internal narrative. The Stoics understood that our initial, automatic impressions are often flawed. They are based on incomplete information, past conditioning, and our own biases. Cognitive distancing gives us the chance to cross-examine these impressions before we allow them to dictate our emotions and actions. It is the difference between being a passenger on a runaway train of thought and being the conductor who can apply the brakes, assess the situation, and choose a different track. To start building this skill, I encourage you to try a brief exercise. Bring to mind one recurring negative thought that often troubles you, perhaps a worry about your capabilities, a fear of what others think, or a critical judgment about a situation. For the next day, whenever you notice that thought arising, practice labeling it. Silently say to yourself, "I am having the thought that," and then complete the sentence. Just this act of naming it, of seeing it as a separate object in your consciousness, can begin to dissolve its sticky, persuasive power and return to you the calm clarity that was there all along. This brings us to a cornerstone of Stoic practice, one that directly confronts the engine of so much of our anxiety, the discipline of desire. At its heart, this discipline is about retraining our wants and wishes, consciously steering them away from the turbulent, unpredictable sea of external events, and anchoring them firmly in the one place we have absolute command, our own character and choices. It's the practice of wanting what is good for us, not just what feels good in the moment, and of defining that good not by the world's ever-shifting standards, but by the timeless quality of our own virtue. The Stoics identified that a vast portion of human suffering stems from a simple misplacement of desire. We desperately want things that are not within our power to secure. We want that specific job promotion. We want universal admiration. We want our plans to unfold exactly as we've envisioned them. But these externals are, by their very nature, fickle and unreliable. They are gifts from fortune that can be given and taken away on a whim, and when we chain our happiness to them, we effectively hand over the keys to our inner peace to a capricious master. The Roman philosopher Seneca, who witnessed the dizzying heights of wealth and power in Nero's court, saw this folly with absolute clarity. He wrote, "What difference does it make how much is laid away in a man's safe or in his barns, how many head of stock he pastures or how much capital he puts out at interest, if he is always after what is another's and only counts what he has yet to get, not what he has already?" Seneca is pointing to a psychological trap we all recognize, the feeling that contentment is always one more acquisition away. We get the raise, and for a brief moment, we feel a flash of satisfaction, but soon our gaze shifts to the next rung on the ladder, the next object of desire. This is the hedonic treadmill, and it's a guaranteed recipe for a low-grade, persistent stress, a feeling that we are perpetually falling short, that we are never quite enough because our possessions, our status, or our reputation are never quite perfect or secure. Now contrast this exhausting pursuit with the serenity of desiring inner virtues. The Stoics taught that we should direct our deepest yearnings toward qualities like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. Why? Because these are goods that are always accessible and entirely within our control. No one can prevent you from acting with courage when faced with a fear. No external circumstance can stop you from choosing to be fair and just in your dealings with others. No market crash can take away your ability to act with wisdom and moderation. When your primary desire is to be a person of good character, you carry the source of your fulfillment within you at all times. You are no longer a beggar at fortune's door, hoping for a scrap of validation or success. You become the author of your own satisfaction. We can see a powerful modern example of this in our relationship with social media. The desire for likes, shares, and positive comments is a quintessential desire for an external. We post a carefully curated photo or a thoughtful comment, and then we wait. Our mood can subtly, or not so subtly, become tied to the digital validation that follows. If the post does well, we feel a rush of affirmation. If it falls flat, we can feel a pang of rejection, of invisibility. This creates a roller coaster of stress, where our sense of self-worth becomes a slave to the algorithms and whims of a distant audience. Now apply the discipline of desire. The shift is not to stop posting or engaging, but to change what you are truly desiring from the act. Instead of desiring the external outcome of maximum likes, you desire the internal virtue of expressing yourself with integrity and authenticity. You post what is true and valuable to you, and you release any attachment to the public response. The virtuous action was in the posting itself, in the courage to share your perspective. The likes become a preferred indifferent nice if they come, utterly irrelevant if they don't. Your peace is no longer on the line. The stress of that entire feedback loop simply dissolves because you have shifted your desire from an unreliable external to a controllable internal. This discipline invites a profound re-evaluation of nearly every ambition. The stress of public speaking, for instance, often comes from the desire for a flawless performance and universal applause. Shift the desire. Make your goal not a perfect speech, but the virtue of courage, of showing up and speaking your truth despite the fear. Make it about the virtue of generosity, of sharing an idea that might benefit someone in the audience. The outcome is now secondary. You have already succeeded by fulfilling your internal goal. The same applies to your career. The stress of chasing a specific title or salary can be immense. But if your desire is shifted to the internal virtues of diligence, creativity, and mastery of your craft, then every day at work becomes an opportunity for fulfillment, regardless of when or if the promotion ever arrives. You are building an inner edifice of skill and character that no one can ever take from you, and that brings a deep, lasting satisfaction that a job title alone can never provide. So let's bring this home with a practical reflection. Look at one specific desire that has been a source of stress or anxiety for you recently. Perhaps it's the desire for a particular person to treat you differently, the desire for a specific financial goal to be met by a certain deadline, or the desire for a project you're working on to be universally praised. Now, see if you can perform this Stoic alchemy. Can you shift that desire from the external outcome to an internal virtue that you can cultivate regardless of the result? If you're desiring a certain outcome from another person, can you shift your focus to the virtue of patience and understanding within yourself? If you're fixated on a financial target, can you redirect your desire toward the internal virtue of prudence and intelligent management of the resources you have right now? This is not about giving up on goals. It is about reclaiming your power. By anchoring your deepest wants in the fertile ground of your own character, you build a life that is not buffeted by every wind of fortune, but one that is rooted, resilient, and authentically your own. While Stoicism provides profound inner practices for managing our thoughts and desires, it is absolutely not a philosophy of passivity or withdrawal from the world. In fact, it demands that we engage with life fully and courageously, but to do so with a specific kind of intention. This is where we encounter the vital Stoic practice known as the discipline of action. This discipline calls us to commit ourselves to right action, to act with justice, kindness, and for the common good in every situation we face. The crucial and often misunderstood part of this commitment is that we must perform these actions while remaining detached from the specific outcomes they produce. We are to focus entirely on the quality and virtue of our effort, and then gracefully accept whatever results follow, because those results are ultimately not within our complete control. This disciplined approach is what liberates us from the crushing anxiety of outcomes, the constant worry over whether our actions will be successful, appreciated, or rewarded. Marcus Aurelius, who spent his life making countless decisions that affected millions of people, constantly reminded himself of this principle. He wrote, "In the morning when you rise unwillingly, let this thought be present: I am rising to do the work of a human being. Why then am I dissatisfied if I am going to do the things for which I exist and for which I was brought into the world? Or was I made for this, to lie in the bedclothes and keep myself warm? But this is more pleasant. So were you made for pleasure, and in general for passivity rather than for activity." He is drawing a clear line here between a life of comfort and a life of purpose. The purpose of a human being, in the Stoic view, is to act virtuously within the community. He further advises, "Let your guiding principle be the action itself, not any resulting reward. Let the action not be performed with an eye to receiving something else. This is the core of the discipline of action. Your job is to do the right thing. The outcome, whether it leads to praise, promotion, criticism, or failure, is the business of the universe, not yours to cling to." Let's bring this to life with a common modern scenario: preparing for a major presentation at work. The conventional and deeply stressful approach is to tie your entire sense of self-worth and success to the outcome. You want that standing ovation. You need your boss's immediate approval. You are desperate for the deal to be signed on the spot. Your mind is fixated on that future result, and this creates a tremendous amount of pressure. Every moment of your preparation is tinged with the fear of not achieving that specific outcome. Now apply the discipline of action. Your entire focus shifts from the applause to the act itself. Your goal is no longer to win them over, but to prepare thoroughly, to ensure your information is accurate and valuable, to communicate with clarity and integrity, and to serve the needs of your audience to the best of your ability. You pour your energy into the virtuous action of diligent preparation and honest communication. You walk into that room having already succeeded because you have fulfilled your duty. You deliver the presentation with the same commitment to doing the right thing. Afterward, if the reaction is positive, you accept it with gratitude but without letting it define you. If the reaction is negative or indifferent, you evaluate any constructive feedback with humility, but you do not let it devastate you. The presentation itself was your arena for practicing virtue. The audience's reaction is outside that arena. Your peace was secured the moment you committed to acting with excellence, not by the unpredictable response that followed. This principle extends far beyond the boardroom and into the smallest interactions of our daily lives. Think about an act of kindness. So often we perform a good deed with a subtle, or not so subtle, expectation of reciprocity or recognition. We hold a door for someone and feel a flicker of annoyance if they don't thank us. We offer help to a friend and then feel resentful if they don't return the favor later. We donate to a charity and subconsciously wait for the social acknowledgement. In every one of these cases, we have attached our action to a desired outcome, and in doing so, we have poisoned the well of the virtuous act itself. The discipline of action asks us to purify our intentions. The act of holding the door is its own reward, because in that moment, you are practicing the virtue of kindness and civic consideration. Whether the person says thank you, glares at you, or doesn't even notice is irrelevant to the moral quality of your action. Your inner peace remains intact because you did the right thing for its own sake. The reward was in the doing, not in the receiving. This is an incredibly powerful way to live because it makes you unstoppable and emotionally resilient. When your primary motivation is to act with justice and kindness, you are no longer paralyzed by the fear of how people will react. You can speak truth to power, not because you are guaranteed a positive result, but because it is the right and courageous thing to do. You can undertake an ambitious creative project, not because you are sure it will be a commercial success, but because the world needs the unique expression of your honest effort. You can intervene in a difficult situation, not because you will be hailed as a hero, but because your conscience demands it. The discipline of action frees you from the approval of others and the tyranny of results. It allows you to become a force of good in the world whose energy is not depleted by setbacks or inflated by successes. Your energy comes from an internal wellspring of virtue that you alone control. So here is a direct and practical challenge for you to undertake today. Perform one small, deliberate act of kindness for someone without any expectation of reward or even thanks. It could be as simple as sending an encouraging text to a colleague, paying for the coffee of the person behind you in line, or offering a genuine compliment to a family member. As you do it, consciously release any attachment to the outcome. Do not look for a specific reaction. Do not wait for a reciprocal gesture. Simply take pleasure in the action itself, in the quiet knowledge that you have, in that moment, fulfilled your human purpose by contributing to the common good. Notice how this feels. It is the taste of a truly free and virtuous life. This brings us to one of the most empowering and actionable ideas in the entire Stoic toolkit, a principle so potent it has become a modern mantra for resilience: the obstacle is the way. This powerful phrase, popularized by author Ryan Holiday, perfectly captures a radical shift in perception that the ancient Stoics mastered. It teaches us that the very barriers we believe are blocking our path are not just inconveniences to be endured. They are, in fact, the essential route to our growth, our strength, and our ultimate success. An obstacle, when met with the right mindset, ceases to be a stop sign and becomes a detour sign, a redirection that forces us to develop creativity, courage, and perseverance we never knew we possessed. It is the raw material for building a more capable and virtuous self. We can see this philosophy embodied in the life of Marcus Aurelius himself. His reign as Roman emperor was not a life of luxury and ease. It was arguably one of the most stressful and demanding jobs in history. He faced constant frontier wars, a devastating plague that swept across the empire, repeated betrayals from those he trusted, and the immense burden of administering a vast, complex state. Yet in his private journal, Meditations, he did not complain or curse his fate. Instead, he used these immense hardships as the whetstone to sharpen his own character. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Just let the profundity of that statement settle. He is asserting that the obstacle itself is not separate from the path forward. It is an integral part of it. The resistance of the barbarian armies advanced his practice of strategic wisdom and justice. The duplicity of court officials advanced his practice of patience and discernment. The physical exhaustion of leadership advanced his practice of discipline and endurance. He was not waiting for the obstacles to clear so he could begin his real work. The obstacles were his real work, the very curriculum for his soul's education. This perspective completely reframes the purpose of a challenge. It is no longer a random piece of bad luck to be lamented, but a specific, custom-designed opportunity to practice a particular virtue. A financial setback becomes a gym for practicing prudence and resourcefulness. A serious illness becomes a classroom for learning courage, patience, and a deeper appreciation for the gift of life. A difficult personal relationship becomes a laboratory for practicing compassion, setting boundaries, and developing emotional intelligence. The obstacle presents the question, and your virtuous response is the answer. You are not being tested by a cruel universe. You are being presented with the exact training you need to evolve into the person you are capable of becoming. Let's apply this to a very common modern source of frustration, a difficult coworker. This person might be overly critical, uncooperative, or simply grating to your nerves. The conventional reaction is to feel resentment, to complain about them to others, to dread interactions, and to see them as a human roadblock to a peaceful workday. Now, apply the obstacle is the way. This person is no longer just a problem. They are your unofficial, unpaid mindfulness and virtue coach. Their criticism is an opportunity to practice humility and discernment, to sift through their feedback for any useful nuggets of truth while letting the rest fall away without damaging your self-worth. Their uncooperative nature is an opportunity to practice patience and creative problem-solving, finding new ways to achieve your goals that don't depend on their cooperation. Their difficult personality is an opportunity to practice the Stoic virtue of justice by refusing to dehumanize them and instead trying to understand the struggles or fears that might be driving their behavior. The coworker hasn't changed, but your relationship to the obstacle has. They have been transformed from a source of stress into a sparring partner for your character. The same principle applies to a project delay or a failed initiative. It's easy to see this as a pure loss, a waste of time and effort, but from the Stoic vantage point, the delay is the way. It might be forcing you to re-examine your plan, revealing flaws that would have been catastrophic later on. It might be teaching you the invaluable lesson of how to manage disappointment with grace, a skill far more important than any single project success. The failure might be clearing the space for a better, more aligned opportunity that you would have been too busy to notice otherwise. The obstacle is not the enemy of your goal. It is a rigorous quality control check on your goal, your methods, and your resilience. It ensures that when you do finally succeed, you are a person strong enough and wise enough to handle that success well. So, here is a direct invitation to put this philosophy into practice right now. Bring to mind one current obstacle in your life. It could be a professional challenge, a personal health issue, a financial pressure, or a relational difficulty. Now, I want you to actively brainstorm and list 3 potential ways this very obstacle could actually be helping you grow. First, what virtue is it forcing you to develop? Is it patience, courage, or perhaps greater self-discipline? Second, what is it teaching you? Is it revealing a blind spot in your planning or a deeper truth about what you truly value? And third, how might this obstacle, paradoxically, be clearing a path for something better? Could it be protecting you from a different, unseen problem or redirecting your energy toward a more meaningful pursuit? By engaging in this mental exercise, you are not just thinking positively, you are performing a profound act of cognitive alchemy, turning the lead of your frustration into the gold of purposeful growth. Now we arrive at a Stoic practice that might seem, at first glance, to be the most daunting of all, yet it holds the key to unlocking a life of profound vitality and purpose. Let's state this boldly and clearly, remembering that you will die is not a morbid fixation. It is the ultimate secret to living with unparalleled intensity, clarity, and gratitude. This is the profound practice of Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that translates to remember you must die. Far from being a dark or depressing thought, the conscious and regular contemplation of our own mortality was seen by the Stoics as the most powerful tool for cutting through the fog of trivial concerns, for instilling a fierce sense of urgency, and for reorienting our lives toward what is truly essential. It is the whetstone that sharpens our appreciation for every single moment we are given, The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his letters, captured the essence of this practice with a stunning insight. He wrote, "He who dies has simply fulfilled the terms of his lease. You are scared of dying, but tell me, is the life you lead really any different than being dead? You exist, but you don't really live. You postpone everything and forget that each day that dawns is a loan that must be repaid at the end. You act as if you are going to live forever, and so you waste the time that has been given to you." In another powerful passage, he argues, life is long if you know how to use it. This is the core of the Memento Mori practice. It is not about the quantity of your days, but the depth and quality you pour into each one. The reminder of death is the alarm clock that shocks us out of our spiritual slumber, forcing us to confront the most critical question: am I truly living, or am I merely existing, postponing my happiness and my purpose for a tomorrow that is never guaranteed? When you internalize the truth of your own finitude, a remarkable shift occurs in your perception. The petty anxieties that once consumed so much of your mental energy suddenly lose their power. That lingering resentment from a minor argument with a friend feels absurdly insignificant. The stress over a perceived social slight or the fear of what strangers might think of you evaporates in the face of this ultimate reality. The desire to keep up with the latest trends or to accumulate more possessions than you could ever need is revealed for the hollow pursuit it is. Memento Mori acts as a filter, sifting the gold of meaningful connection and purposeful action from the sand of trivial distraction. It forces you to ask again and again, does this really matter? In the grand final scheme of my life, will this worry, this conflict, this ambition hold any weight? Think about how this applies to the daily texture of your life. Imagine you are in the middle of a heated, pointless debate online or a frustrating standoff with a family member over something trivial. Now superimpose the Memento Mori lens from the perspective of your final moments, looking back on your life. How important will winning this argument seem? Will you wish you had spent more time being right or more time being kind and connected? The answer becomes immediately, painfully clear. This practice doesn't make you passive, it makes you fiercely selective. It teaches you to invest your precious and limited time, attention, and emotional energy only in the people and pursuits that genuinely enrich your soul and contribute to a life well lived. It urges you to mend fractured relationships now, to express love and appreciation openly today, and to stop delaying the creative projects and personal adventures that call to your heart. So let's bring this from the philosophical to the intensely practical with a single, powerful question designed to cut through the noise of your daily concerns. I want you to truly pause and sit with this. If you received a definitive medical diagnosis and knew with certainty that you had only 1 month left to live, what would you immediately stop stressing about? Would you continue to obsess over your inbox? Would you still lose sleep over a critical comment from a colleague? Would you waste a single second worrying about the dust on your furniture or the minor imperfections in your appearance? Of course not. The illusion of endless time would be shattered, and your priorities would snap into razor-sharp focus with breathtaking speed. You would instantly stop pouring your life force into the bottomless pit of other people's opinions and meaningless chores. You would instead turn your attention wholly to the people you love, to the experiences that bring you joy, to the beauty of the natural world, and to the peace that comes from being fully present and authentic. The practice of Memento Mori is the decision to live with that same clarity and urgency right now, without waiting for a terminal diagnosis to shock you into awareness. It is the conscious choice to live each day as if it were a complete and precious life in itself, so that whenever your end does arrive, you can look back not with a list of regrets for a life postponed, but with the quiet satisfaction of a life fully and courageously lived. Now, let's challenge one of the most deeply ingrained assumptions of our modern world, the relentless pursuit of constant, effortless comfort. We live in an age of on-demand everything, from instant meals to endless entertainment streams, all designed to eliminate the slightest hint of inconvenience or discomfort. Yet, paradoxically, this cocoon of comfort may be making us more fragile, more anxious, and less capable of handling the inevitable bumps and jolts of life. The Stoics proposed a radical alternative, a practice known as voluntary discomfort. This is the deliberate and mindful choice to experience mild, manageable hardship, not as a form of self-punishment, but as a form of training for the soul. It is about building resilience from the inside out, like a mental immune system that grows stronger through controlled exposure to life's minor stresses. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus, who emphasized the practical application of philosophy in daily life, drew a powerful comparison. He said, "For just as it is the nature of the body to be hardened by physical exercise, so it is the nature of the soul to be hardened by mental exercise." He was essentially arguing that we must train our minds with the same discipline and intentionality that an athlete trains their body. An athlete doesn't build strength by only lifting weights that feel easy. They must progressively challenge their muscles, taking them to the edge of their capacity. In the same way, our soul, our core resilience, is built and fortified not when everything is easy, but when we voluntarily step into the ring with discomfort. We are teaching our nervous system and our psyche a profound lesson, that we can endure difficulty, that we are more capable than we thought, and that comfort is a pleasant option, not a life or death necessity. What does this look like in practical terms? The ancient Stoics practiced this in various ways. They might choose to wear simpler clothing in cold weather instead of piling on layers immediately. They might periodically fast, not for religious reasons, but to remember that they could function well and feel clear-headed without an abundance of food. They might even sleep on a hard floor for a night to break the attachment to a perfect, plush mattress. The goal was never to inflict suffering for its own sake. The goal was always to inoculate themselves against the shock of future hardship. By willingly experiencing a small dose of cold, hunger, or physical discomfort, they were proving to themselves in a tangible way that their peace and well-being did not depend on perfect external conditions. They were building an inner refuge that no storm could destroy. Let's translate this into a profoundly relevant modern example, the digital fast. Think about the constant, low-grade discomfort many of us feel when we are separated from our phones or the internet. That twitch to check for notifications, the anxiety of feeling out of the loop, the boredom that arises the moment we have a few spare seconds without stimulation. This addiction to digital comfort is a real source of mental fragmentation and stress. So, try a voluntary discomfort exercise for a set period, perhaps just 3 hours on a Saturday afternoon. Power down your phone, your computer, your tablet. Leave them all off. At first, you will likely feel that familiar itch of anxiety, a sense of being disconnected and perhaps even a little bored. But if you sit with that discomfort without immediately reaching for another distraction, something remarkable begins to happen. Your mind, deprived of its usual digital pacifiers, starts to settle. You might notice the sunlight in the room or actually listen to the full sound of your own breath. You might feel an urge to engage in a simple, tangible task or to have an uninterrupted conversation. This practice isn't about demonizing technology. It's about reclaiming your attention and proving to yourself that your peace is not held hostage by a device. It's a workout for your focus and your capacity to be with yourself, undistracted and whole. The power of this practice lies in its ability to foster a deep and genuine appreciation for the ordinary comforts we usually take for granted. When you voluntarily skip a meal and feel the pangs of hunger, the next simple piece of bread you eat tastes like a feast. When you take a brief cold shower, the subsequent feeling of warmth from a towel or a sweater is intensely satisfying. You are not taking these things away permanently. You are temporarily setting them aside to remember their true value. This breaks the cycle of entitled expectation, where we feel we deserve constant comfort and become irritated or stressed when it is momentarily absent. Voluntary discomfort transforms your baseline from one of expectation to one of appreciation. It turns the simple act of eating a warm meal after being cold, or checking your messages after a deliberate fast, into a conscious experience of gratitude rather than an automatic, mindless ritual. This is how you build what the Stoics called Apatheia, not a lack of feeling, but a freedom from being at the mercy of every passing discomfort and desire. It's the difference between being a leaf tossed about by every wind of circumstance and being the tree that stands firm, its roots deepened by having weathered many storms. By regularly practicing small acts of voluntary discomfort, you are sending a continuous message to your deepest self. I am strong, I am adaptable, my well-being is an internal state, not an external condition. This cultivated resilience then flows into every other area of your life. When a real hardship arrives, a financial pressure, a professional rejection, a personal loss, you do not face it as a complete novice. You have a reservoir of proven fortitude to draw upon. You have already, in a small but significant way, stared down difficulty and emerged not only unscathed but stronger. So here is a direct and accessible invitation to begin this training. For the next 24 hours, I want you to choose one small, daily comfort and voluntarily give it up. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Perhaps it's that second cup of coffee in the afternoon, or the habit of scrolling through social media first thing in the morning. Maybe it's taking a slightly cooler shower than usual, or choosing to walk a short distance instead of driving. The key is to choose something that you will genuinely notice, a comfort that has a small but definite hold on your routine. As you go through your day without it, observe the effects with curiosity, not judgment. Notice the initial urge or the minor sense of lack. Then notice what happens after that initial wave passes. Do you feel a sense of self-respect for following through? Does your mind feel clearer or more focused? Does the absence of that one thing make you more appreciative of other parts of your day? This single, small experiment is a practical step toward building the unshakable mental fortitude that comes from knowing firsthand that you are the master of your comforts, not their servant. Why is it that in an age of unprecedented material abundance, with more comforts and conveniences at our fingertips than any generation in history, a deep and lasting sense of contentment often feels so elusive, so just out of reach? We achieve one goal, acquire one desired object, and almost immediately, our gaze shifts to the next target, the next upgrade, the next milestone. This restless striving isn't necessarily a bad thing. It drives progress and innovation. But when it becomes the default state of our being, it condemns us to a perpetual state of wanting, of feeling that we are not quite enough because what we have is not quite enough. The Stoics offered a radical and liberating alternative to this cycle. For them, contentment was not a distant destination to be arrived at through the accumulation of things or achievements. It was a skill, an art to be practiced in the present moment. Stoic contentment is the profound understanding that sufficiency is not found in external acquisitions, but in the quiet recognition that you already possess everything you truly need within yourself, right here, right now. It is the mental and emotional state of finding completeness in your own character, your capacity for reason, and your ability to engage with the world virtuously, regardless of the ever-changing circumstances of fortune. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and therefore understood the nature of true freedom better than most, put it with breathtaking clarity. He said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Let that idea settle for a moment. He is completely redefining the entire concept of wealth. It is not an external tally of your bank account or your property. It is an internal state of mind. A billionaire who is perpetually anxious about losing their money or obsessed with acquiring more is, in the Stoic sense, impoverished. A person with modest means who has mastered their desires and finds joy in simple, readily available pleasures is truly rich. This wealth of few wants is the bedrock of contentment. It means you have consciously decoupled your happiness from the shopping cart, the job title, and the social media follow count. Your sense of well-being becomes internally generated, a renewable resource that cannot be depleted by market crashes, social slights, or the whims of fashion. This ancient wisdom provides the perfect antidote to a well-documented modern psychological phenomenon known as the hedonic treadmill. This is the idea that we humans have a baseline level of happiness, and while positive events like a raise or a new car may give us a temporary boost, we quickly adapt to our new circumstances and return to that baseline, only to set our sights on the next thing that we believe will make us happy. It's a treadmill because you have to keep running, keep consuming, keep achieving just to stay in the same emotional place. The faster you run, the faster the treadmill moves, leading to exhaustion and a feeling of emptiness. You are chasing a phantom, believing that the next acquisition will finally be the one that delivers lasting satisfaction, but it never is. The new car smell fades, the excitement of the promotion settles into a new normal, and the thirst for the next thing returns, often stronger than before. Stoicism offers us a simple, powerful way to step off this exhausting treadmill. It teaches us to change the direction of our desire. Instead of constantly desiring more money, more status, more stuff, we practice desiring less. Or more precisely, we practice desiring less of what we cannot control and more of what we can, specifically, the quality of our own character and our appreciation for the present. When you stop the frantic running and simply stand still, you begin to notice the incredible wealth that has been there all along, wealth that costs absolutely nothing. The warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of rain against the window, the feeling of a deep, full breath filling your lungs, the genuine laughter of a child. The comfort of a quiet moment with a cup of tea, the reliability of your own heartbeat. These are not small, insignificant things. They are the fundamental textures of a human life, and they are available to almost everyone, regardless of their financial situation. The art of contentment is the practice of shifting your attention from what you lack to the overwhelming abundance of what you already have. This is not a call to abandon ambition or to stop improving your material circumstances. The Stoics referred to things like health and wealth as preferred indifference. It is perfectly rational to prefer health over sickness, comfort over hardship. The key is to hold these preferences lightly without making your inner peace conditional upon them. You can work hard for a promotion, but you do so for the virtuous expression of your skills and diligence, not because you believe the title itself will finally make you content. You can enjoy a beautiful home, but you enjoy it with the mindful awareness that it is a temporary gift, not the source of your identity. This mental shift is what breaks the spell of the hedonic treadmill. You are no longer running toward something external to complete you. You are already complete, and you are simply engaging with the world from that place of inner wholeness. Your actions become expressions of your values, not desperate attempts to fill a perceived void. To truly anchor this feeling, let's engage in a brief but profoundly effective Stoic exercise in reorienting your attention. I want you to pause for a moment and bring to mind 3 specific things you are genuinely grateful for in this very moment, with the only rule being that they cannot have cost you any money. It could be the loyalty of a pet, the memory of a meaningful conversation you had today, the sight of a tree outside your window, the feeling of the chair supporting your body, or the simple fact that you have the capacity to learn and grow from ideas like these. The specific things matter less than the sincere feeling of appreciation you cultivate for them. By actively directing your mind toward these freely available gifts, you are performing a powerful act of cognitive restructuring. You are proving to yourself through direct experience that the source of your contentment is not waiting for you in a store or at the end of a career path. It is accessible to you right now in the endless series of present moments that make up your life. This practice of gratitude is the practical, daily nourishment for the art of contentment, reminding you that you are and always have been far richer than you thought. Now, let's explore a subtle but transformative Stoic skill that can intercept stress before it even takes root in your nervous system. So much of our daily turmoil arises not from events themselves, but from the instantaneous, almost reflexive, labels we slap onto them the moment they occur. We receive a piece of news and our mind instantly categorizes it as a catastrophe. A person makes an offhand comment and we immediately judge it as a personal insult. We are like judges who deliver a verdict without ever hearing the evidence, and then we spend the rest of the day or week living in the emotional prison of that rushed ruling. The Stoic practice of judgment suspension is the conscious decision to call for a recess in this internal courtroom. It is the act of taking a deliberate pause between receiving an impression and assigning it a value of good or bad. This pause, this moment of mindful hesitation, is where our true freedom resides. It is the gap that allows us to prevent those immediate, often flawed, emotional reactions from hijacking our peace and our better judgment. The foundational insight here is that not every impression that flashes through our mind deserves our belief, our energy, or our emotional investment. Our initial interpretations are frequently incomplete, distorted by our moods, our past experiences, and our own biases. The great teacher Epictetus pointed directly to this when he said, "The beginning of philosophy is the awareness of one's own weakness and incapacity in necessary things." In this context, he is talking about our profound ignorance when it comes to accurately assessing reality in the moment. We are quick to assume we know the full story, that we understand someone's motives, that we can predict the ultimate outcome of an event. Judgment suspension is the humble admission that we might be wrong. It is the wisdom to acknowledge that our first impression is just that, an impression, a single snapshot, not the full, moving picture of truth. Consider a scenario that is almost universally relatable in our modern, digital world. You open your email and see a message from a colleague or your boss. The subject line is brief. The body of the email contains a single, terse sentence, perhaps something like, "We need to talk about your report. Come to my office at 3." Now observe what happens in the mind if judgment is not suspended. Instantly, the internal alarm bells start ringing. The mind, in its rush to make sense of the unknown, leaps to the worst possible conclusion. It judges the email as bad, as a threat. It constructs a whole narrative. The report is terrible. I'm in trouble. He's angry with me. My job might be at risk. This judgment then triggers a cascade of physiological stress responses. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, your thoughts start to race with defensiveness and anxiety. For the next several hours, you are living in a self-created state of dread. all based on a single, unverified interpretation of a few words on a screen. Now let's replay that exact same scenario with the tool of judgment suspension. You open the email and read the exact same words. "We need to talk about your report. Come to my office at 3, but this time you consciously insert that crucial pause. You notice the initial jolt of worry, the automatic impulse to label this as a bad event. But instead of following that impulse, you simply observe it. You say to yourself, "I am having the impression that this is bad news," and then you stop. You refuse to deliver a verdict. You treat the email as a neutral piece of data for which you do not yet have sufficient context. Perhaps the report was so outstanding that your boss wants to congratulate you and discuss how to implement your ideas across the team. Perhaps there is a simple, minor clarification needed that will take 30 seconds. Perhaps your boss is simply rushed and stressed themselves, and the terseness of the email has absolutely nothing to do with you or the quality of your work. By suspending judgment, you have effectively disarmed the email. You have prevented it from stealing your peace for the next 3 hours. You can now continue your day with calm focus, walking into the 3 o'clock meeting with an open, curious mind rather than a defensive, anxious one. This practice is like installing a mental circuit breaker. It stops the short circuit between a triggering event and a full-blown emotional storm. The space you create allows for reason to enter the conversation. It gives you the opportunity to ask yourself some simple, grounding questions before you react. What is the actual evidence for my initial judgment? What are other, more benign or even positive interpretations of this event? Is my reaction proportional to what has actually occurred, or is it being amplified by my own insecurities or fatigue? This is not about becoming emotionally numb or detached. It is about choosing your responses wisely rather than being a puppet jerked around by every passing impression. It is the difference between being a reactor and being a responder. A reactor is controlled by external stimuli. A responder, having created that vital space, has the freedom to choose how and even if to engage. The power of this practice extends far beyond emails and into every facet of our interactions. A friend doesn't return your text message. The unsuspended judgment might be, "They're ignoring me, they're upset with me." The suspended judgment allows for a dozen other possibilities. They are busy, their phone died, they saw the message and got distracted, they are simply having a difficult day. Your partner comes home from work seeming quiet and withdrawn. The immediate judgment might be, "I've done something wrong, they're angry at me." The suspended judgment allows you to consider that they may just be tired, preoccupied with a work problem, or feeling unwell. By withholding our snap judgments, we avoid pouring fuel on the small sparks of misunderstanding that can so easily flare up into unnecessary conflicts and personal suffering. We give others the benefit of the doubt, and in doing so, we give ourselves the gift of tranquility. To begin weaving this powerful habit into the fabric of your daily life, I invite you to undertake a simple but profound practice. For the next 24 hours, make it your intention to catch yourself in the moment you feel a surge of anger, anxiety, or irritation beginning to rise. It could be in traffic during a difficult conversation or when reading something unsettling online. The very instant you feel that familiar heat or tension, that is your cue. Instead of being swept away by the feeling, see if you can simply hit the pause button. Take one conscious breath. In that breath, remind yourself that your initial judgment is just one possible interpretation, not an absolute truth. You don't have to figure everything out right away. You just have to grant yourself that small sanctuary of non-reactivity. In that quiet space between the trigger and your response, you will find a freedom and a clarity that can fundamentally change your entire experience of the world, allowing you to meet each moment not with a pre-written script of fear or defensiveness, but with an open and truly resilient mind. But what if the very sense of separation you feel from the world, that feeling of being an isolated island of consciousness battling against everyone else, was actually an illusion? The Stoics proposed a breathtaking vision of reality that directly counteracts this modern loneliness, a principle known as Sympatheia. This is the profound belief in the interconnectedness of all things, our understanding that every person, every creature, and every element of the cosmos is part of a single, unified, and rational whole. Think of the universe not as a collection of separate objects, but as a single, living organism. In this vast body, you and I are not competing cells. We are interconnected parts of the same tissue, each reliant on the health and functioning of the other. To recognize this web of relation is to undergo a fundamental shift in consciousness, one that naturally fosters deep empathy, dramatically reduces feelings of isolation, and moves your entire life's focus from a narrow, anxious me to a generous, purposeful we. Marcus Aurelius, from his position of ultimate worldly power, constantly reminded himself of this humble truth to guard against the arrogance and isolation that power can bring. He wrote in his Meditations, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." And in another passage, he offered an even more direct image. We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. To act against one another, then, is contrary to nature. Just sit with that metaphor for a moment. Your hands do not compete with your feet. They work in concert for the good of the entire body. Your upper and lower teeth, though they may appear opposed, work together to nourish the whole. This is the Stoic view of humanity. Your well-being is intrinsically tied to the well-being of your neighbor, your colleague, and even the stranger you pass on the street. To act with selfishness or malice is not just morally questionable, it is, in a very real sense, unnatural. It is like one hand deciding to punch the face it is attached to. The entire system suffers from the self-inflicted wound. When you internalize this perspective, it begins to rewire your emotional responses to the world, especially in those frustrating daily interactions that normally trigger irritation and stress. Let's take the classic modern example. You're in a coffee shop waiting patiently in line, and the person ahead of you is being incredibly slow, fumbling with their payment, holding up the entire queue. The default, self-centered reaction is irritation. Your mind immediately frames the situation as me versus them. Their slowness is an inconvenience to you, a personal affront to your precious time. You might sigh audibly, check your watch, and feel a low simmer of anger. Now apply the lens of Sympatheia. Instead of seeing a rude person, you choose to see a fellow human being who is part of the same universal body as you. What invisible struggles might they be carrying? Perhaps they just received devastating news and their hands are shaking so badly they can't get their card into the reader. Perhaps they are caring for a sick parent and haven't slept, their mind foggy with exhaustion. Perhaps they are simply having a very, very bad day, feeling just as isolated and stressed as you sometimes do. This shift doesn't mean their action is suddenly efficient or that the delay vanishes. What changes is your internal narrative about it. The event is no longer a personal attack from a separate entity. It is a momentary friction within a single, interconnected system. Your irritation, which was a form of resistance to this friction, simply dissolves. It is replaced by a feeling of patience or even compassion. You are no longer a solitary island being inconvenienced by another island. You are two waves in the same ocean, momentarily affecting one another. This understanding is a superpower for dissolving road rage, for dealing with difficult customer service calls, for navigating family tensions. It asks you to look past the superficial, often frustrating behavior of another person and to connect with their shared humanity, with the understanding that they, like you, are a fragment of the whole doing their best with whatever burdens they are carrying. It transforms potential conflicts into opportunities for empathy. This sense of cosmic connection also provides a powerful antidote to the anxiety of feeling small and insignificant. In a universe of infinite size, it's easy to feel like your life doesn't matter, but Sympatheia turns that notion on its head. If the universe is indeed a single body, then every part, no matter how seemingly small, is essential to the health of the whole. The heart is not more important than the smallest capillary. Both are vital for circulating lifeblood. In the same way, your actions, your choices, and your attitude send ripples through the entire interconnected web. Your act of kindness to one person can uplift them, which in turn affects how they interact with others, creating a cascade of positivity that extends far beyond your sight. Your commitment to living virtuously contributes to the overall moral health of the human community. You are not a powerless speck. You are a vital, active node in the network of existence, and the quality of your presence matters to the whole. To make this vast philosophical idea tangible and practical, I want to offer you a simple challenge. Sometime today, perform one small, deliberate action that actively acknowledges your connection to your community or to the wider world. This isn't about grand, heroic gestures. It's about a conscious choice to express your part in the whole. It could be buying a meal for a homeless person and looking them in the eye as you hand it to them, silently acknowledging your shared humanity. It could be picking up a piece of litter in your local park, taking responsibility for the health of a shared space. It could be writing a heartfelt note of appreciation to a coworker who often goes unnoticed, strengthening the bonds within your professional hive. It could even be as simple as offering your full, undivided attention to a child or a partner when they speak to you, making them feel truly seen and heard. The specific action is less important than the intention behind it, the conscious recognition that you are not an isolated self, but a caring, contributing member of a vast, interwoven family. In that small act, you are not just doing a good deed, you are living the truth of Sympatheia, and in doing so, you fortify your own soul against the modern plague of loneliness and build a more compassionate world, one connection at a time. Imagine a fortress not of stone and mortar, but of unwavering reason and profound peace, built deep within the landscape of your own mind. This is the Stoic ideal of the inner citadel, a concept that captures the ultimate goal of this philosophy: to construct a sanctuary of the self so resilient that no external event, no matter how chaotic or painful, can ever breach its walls. It is not a place of escape from the world, but a place of unshakable strength from which to engage with the world. The storms of life will always rage: the criticism, the financial pressures, the personal losses, the daily frustrations. The inner citadel is the strong house at the center of that storm, a place where the windows are shuttered against the howling wind. A warm fire of clarity burns in the hearth, and you remain safe, dry, and in full possession of your faculties, waiting for the tempest to pass. This citadel isn't a birthright. It is an architecture of character, painstakingly built brick by brick through the daily, consistent practice of every Stoic principle we've discussed. Every time you practice the dichotomy of control, you are laying a foundation stone. Every moment you choose Amor Fati, you are reinforcing the walls. Each session of negative visualization or cognitive distancing adds a sturdy buttress, making the entire structure impervious to the siege engines of fortune. Marcus Aurelius, who needed this mental fortress more than most, described this process beautifully in his meditations. He wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look there." He is pointing to that inner wellspring, and then he goes further, advising himself, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." This is the essence of the Citadel. It is the soul itself, trained and fortified, becoming its own refuge. The chaos of the imperial court, the betrayals, the pressures of war, none of it could touch the core of him if he did not allow it. His peace was not dependent on the empire being peaceful. It was dependent on him maintaining the integrity of his inner stronghold. This is the profound immunity that Stoicism offers. You become like a skilled captain on a ship in a hurricane. The waves are monstrous, the wind is screaming, but you are tied fast to the helm, your focus locked on navigating the storm, your inner resolve unbroken by the chaos surrounding you. The storm is real, but your capitulation to it is optional. So, how do we practically retreat to this calm center when we are in the thick of a stressful modern situation, like a contentious work meeting or a heated family conflict? The moment you feel the heat of anger rising or the cold grip of anxiety taking hold, that is your signal. It's like an alarm bell telling you that the outer walls of your citadel are being tested. The first step is to create a tiny, almost imperceptible mental pause. In the middle of that meeting, as a colleague challenges your idea in a way that feels personal, instead of reacting immediately, you take one conscious breath. In that breath, you perform a swift internal maneuver. You mentally step back from the conversation just a few feet, and you visualize your inner citadel. You see yourself crossing a drawbridge over a moat of calm detachment, and you close the heavy gates behind you. From within this fortified space, you can now look out at the situation through the arrow slits. You can see and hear what is happening, but you are no longer in the line of fire. From this place of safety, you can now respond rather than react. You can use the discipline of action to ask a clarifying question with genuine curiosity, rather than firing back a defensive retort. You can apply cognitive distancing, recognizing that your colleague's aggressive tone might be a reflection of their own stress, not an objective assessment of your worth. The content of the meeting continues, but you are now engaging from a position of unassailable strength. The same applies to a family argument. When old, painful patterns start to play out and you feel yourself being emotionally triggered, that is the moment to execute this inner retreat. Excuse yourself for a moment to get a glass of water, and as you stand in the kitchen, you actively rebuild the walls in your mind. You remember what is within your control, your tone, your words, your willingness to listen, and what is not, their past judgments, their entrenched opinions. You return to the conversation not as a combatant, but as a guardian of your own peace, capable of listening with empathy without absorbing the toxicity. You become an oasis of calm in the emotional desert of the conflict, and often that very calmness has a powerful, disarming effect on everyone else involved. To make this concept truly your own, I want to guide you through a brief visualization. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or simply soften your gaze and take a deep, slow breath. In your mind's eye, I want you to begin constructing your own personal inner citadel. What does it look like? Is it an ancient stone fortress on a windswept cliff, impervious to the crashing waves below? Is it a serene, sun-drenched temple in a quiet forest glade? Or is it a sleek, modern sanctuary of light and tranquility? There is no right or wrong answer. This is the architecture of your soul. Now step inside. What makes this place strong? Feel the solidity of the walls. These are built from your core values and your unwavering principles. Look at the foundation. This is your understanding of the dichotomy of control, the bedrock that cannot be shaken. Notice the source of light and warmth within this is your practice of gratitude and Amor Fati, the fire that transforms all hardship into fuel. This citadel is yours alone. It is always accessible, always waiting for you. The more you visit it in moments of quiet reflection, the more real and readily available it becomes in moments of chaos. It is the ultimate expression of Stoic wisdom, the unassailable peace that comes not from a perfect life, but from a perfectly ordered mind. The Stoics viewed anger not as a righteous passion, but as a temporary form of madness, a fever of the soul that clouds judgment and leads us to act against our own nature and well-being. They understood that anger doesn't simply happen to us. It is a specific reaction born from a specific and often flawed judgment. That initial, lightning-fast judgment is always some variation of the same idea. I have been wronged. An injustice has been committed against me. The Stoic project regarding anger is to dissect that judgment before it can erupt into a destructive emotion, to question its validity and thereby dissolve its power. Seneca, in his brilliant and deeply practical essay on anger, lays out the core of this idea with brutal clarity. He writes, "No plague has cost the human race more dear than anger." He describes it as a brief insanity, a force that is greedy for punishment, and so it is a weapon which turns on its possessor. This is the crucial Stoic insight. The primary victim of your rage is not the person you're angry with, it is you. The anger you hold is a poison you voluntarily drink, all while expecting the other person to suffer. To disarm this internal poison, the Stoics prescribed a series of deliberate mental strategies. The first and most immediate is the practice of delay. When you feel that hot surge of anger beginning to boil in your chest, your very first line of defense is to do absolutely nothing. Do not speak, do not act, do not even formulate the sentence you are about to unleash. Simply impose a mandatory pause. Seneca advises, when you are angry, say nothing, do nothing, until you have repeated the 4 and 20 letters to yourself. This ancient equivalent of counting to 10 or even 100 is not about suppression. It is about creating a vital gap between the triggering event and your reaction. A space where your rational mind can re-engage and wrest control back from the emotional hijacking that is underway. In that quiet moment of delay, you are not letting the other person off the hook. You are giving yourself the gift of choice. You are moving from being a reactor, a puppet jerked by external strings, to being a responder, an agent in command of your own inner state. Once you have created that space through delay, the next step is to actively challenge the initial judgment of being wronged by shifting your perspective. This involves a conscious and empathetic effort to see the situation from the other person's point of view. The Stoics were masters of this reframing. They would ask, is it possible this person did not intend to harm me? Could they be acting out of ignorance, fear, or their own deep-seated pain? Are they, in fact, a flawed human being just like me, capable of making mistakes without it being a personal declaration of war? This is not about excusing bad behavior. It is about understanding its source to drain it of its personal sting. When you realize that a person's actions are almost always about their own internal world, their insecurities, their limited understanding, their struggles, and rarely a calculated attack on your essence, the foundation of your anger begins to crumble. You stop taking it so personally. You see them as a fellow traveler on a difficult road, perhaps stumbling and bumping into you, rather than as a malicious enemy aiming for a direct hit. Let's apply these steps to a modern scenario we can all recognize: road rage. You are driving calmly, and another car suddenly cuts you off, forcing you to slam on your brakes. The immediate, automatic judgment flashes in your mind. That jerk did that on purpose. They have no regard for my safety. this judgment triggers a cascade of biological and emotional responses. Your heart pounds, your face flushes, and you might lay on the horn, shout an obscenity, or even feel the urge to retaliate by tailgating them. Now, let's walk through the Stoic dissolution. First, delay. Instead of honking or yelling, you take a deep, deliberate breath. You grip the steering wheel and focus only on the act of driving safely for the next 10 seconds. This simple pause prevents the situation from escalating into a dangerous confrontation. Second, shift perspective. From the calm space you've created, you now ask what might have been going on with that driver. Perhaps they are a parent rushing to a sick child in the hospital and are distracted by panic. Maybe they are a new driver who made a genuine, terrified mistake. Maybe they simply didn't see you because of a blind spot. The action remains reckless, but your narrative about its intent has changed from malicious to human. Finally, remember Seneca's warning that anger turns on its holder. Who is suffering more in this scenario? The other driver, who is likely already miles down the road and completely oblivious, or you, sitting in your car with your body flooded with stress hormones, your morning ruined by a simmering fury. By deconstructing the event this way, you reclaim your peace. The other driver's mistake remains their mistake, but it no longer gets to command your emotional state for the next hour. You have used reason to put out the fire of anger before it could consume you. This brings us to a powerful point of personal reflection, a chance to turn the Stoic lens inward on your own experience. Think back to the last time you felt truly, deeply angry. It might have been a conflict with a partner, a frustration with a coworker, or a sense of injustice from a stranger. Now, gently examine the specific judgment you were making in that moment. What was the story you told yourself? Was it, they disrespect me, or this is unfair, or they are trying to undermine me? Now, with the calm distance of hindsight, ask yourself the most liberating question the Stoics can offer. Was that judgment entirely 100% true? Could there have been another, less personal, explanation for what happened? Were you, perhaps, filtering the event through your own fatigue, insecurities, or expectations? Often, we discover that our anger was built on a foundation of assumptions, not facts. By questioning the truth of our initial judgment, we don't just manage our anger, we uproot it at its source, freeing ourselves from the exhausting burden of carrying a grievance that may have been based on a misunderstanding all along. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a single, profound directive that serves as the compass for the entire virtuous life: to live in accordance with nature. Now, this might sound at first like a call to spend more time hiking in the woods, but for the Stoics, this concept was infinitely richer and more complex. It meant two things simultaneously. First, to live in harmony with the grand, rational, and beautifully ordered universe itself, the cosmos with all its laws and patterns. And second, to live in accordance with our own specific human nature, which is fundamentally the nature of a rational and social being. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno, and his successor Cleans, taught that the entire universe is permeated by a divine reason, a logos, which is the active principle of order and intelligence governing all of existence. To follow nature, then, is to align our individual will with this universal will, to sync our personal rhythm with the cosmic rhythm. It is to recognize that we are not separate entities dropped into a random, chaotic world, but integral parts of a vast, intelligible whole. Cleans beautifully expressed this sentiment in his hymn to Zeus, writing, "Lead me on, O Zeus, and thou destiny, to that goal long ago to me assigned. I'll follow readily, but if my will prove weak and cowardly, I'll follow none the less." This is the essence of the Stoic surrender, a willing, conscious alignment with the flow of existence, trusting that the universe, in its grand wisdom, has a coherent structure, even when we cannot see it from our limited, ground-level perspective. When you internalize this perspective, a profound sense of peace becomes available, a peace that comes from the cessation of an internal war. So much of our daily stress and suffering does not arise from the events themselves, but from our fierce, exhausting resistance to them. We are like a river trying to flow upstream, fighting the current, exhausting ourselves against the inevitable downhill pull of reality. We get sick and we rage against the injustice of our body's betrayal. We face a financial setback and we scream at the unfairness of the market. A relationship ends and we spend years wrestling with the why, refusing to accept that it was simply the natural conclusion of a path that was no longer meant for us. This resistance is a form of violence we commit against ourselves. It is the ego's desperate attempt to command the ocean's tides, and the resulting stress is the inevitable consequence of that futile struggle. Living in accordance with nature is the decision to finally stop swimming upstream. It is to turn around, to let the current carry you, and to use your energy not to fight the flow, but to navigate it with skill and grace. The river's direction is reality itself, what the Stoics called the will of Zeus or the Logos, and your peace is found in flowing with it, not in denying its existence. This philosophy finds a powerful modern parallel in the psychological concept of radical acceptance. The idea is strikingly similar, that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, and suffering is created by our non-acceptance of the pain. When we stop fighting what is true in this present moment, whether it's a traffic jam, a critical comment, or a serious illness, we drain the situation of its secondary, self-inflicted anguish. The pain of the illness remains, but the added layer of "this shouldn't be happening to me" vanishes. The frustration of the traffic remains, but the toxic layer of rage and impotence dissolves. By accepting the natural ebb and flow of life, we are not becoming passive or complacent. On the contrary, acceptance is the prerequisite for effective action. You cannot effectively treat an illness if you are in denial about having it. You cannot skillfully navigate a financial crisis if you are consumed by anger about its occurrence. Acceptance clears the emotional debris, allowing your rational mind, your own fragment of the universal logos, to come to the fore and respond to the situation with clarity and purpose. Consider the natural rhythm of day and night, of the seasons turning, of the tides rising and falling. These cycles are not stressful, they are simply the expression of nature's order. There is no struggle in the tree when it loses its leaves in autumn. It is simply preparing for the winter in a state of perfect acceptance. Our own lives are meant to mirror this same harmonious pattern. There is a natural season for success and a natural season for failure. There is a time for vibrant health and a time for sickness and decline. There is a period of gaining and a period of losing. When we expect our lives to be a perpetual, sunny summer, we set ourselves up for a constant battle with reality. The Stoic practice of living according to nature is to learn to embrace the entire cycle. It is to find the value in the winter of our lives, the quiet introspection, the necessary rest, the hidden growth that happens beneath the surface. It is to appreciate the autumn, the letting go, the release of what is no longer needed to make space for new growth. By aligning with this larger pattern, our personal successes feel less like personal triumphs to be arrogantly clung to, and our failures feel less like personal damnations to be desperately avoided. They are simply part of the weather of a human life, passing phenomena in the grand, beautiful, and rational order of the cosmos. To make this vast philosophical idea intensely personal and practical, let's turn the lens inward for a moment. I want you to bring to mind one specific aspect of your life that you are currently fighting against. It might be something large and profound, like a chronic health condition you can't seem to accept, or the aging of your body. It might be a professional situation, like a job you feel trapped in, constantly wishing you were somewhere else. It could be a relational dynamic, like a family member's personality that you are continually trying to change. Or it could be something as simple as the chronic lateness of a friend that never fails to trigger your irritation. Identify that one point of resistance, that spot where you consistently find yourself butting up against reality, feeling the familiar heat of frustration or the cold weight of resentment. Now I want you to perform a simple but powerful thought experiment. Instead of focusing on how to change it or defeat it just for a moment, consider what it would feel like to truly accept it. Not to approve of it, not to like it, but to simply stop fighting its existence. What if this health condition, this difficult job, this challenging relationship is simply a part of your current landscape, as real and undeniable as a mountain in your path? The mountain does not care if you are angry at it. Your anger does not make the mountain smaller. It only makes you more exhausted as you shake your fist at it. Acceptance is the moment you stop shaking your fist and finally sit down to look at the mountain, to study its contours, and to begin figuring out the smartest, most virtuous way to climb it, go around it, or perhaps even learn to appreciate the view from its base. In that moment of ceasefire, in that decision to align with reality rather than fight it, you will find a surprising and profound sense of peace. The peace that the Stoics promised comes from living in accordance with nature. Now, let's turn to a practice that transforms philosophy from a set of abstract ideas into a living, breathing part of your daily life. A ritual that the Stoics considered non-negotiable for anyone serious about cultivating wisdom and peace. This is the practice of the evening review, a deliberate and structured session of daily introspection. Imagine ending each day not with a frazzled collapse into bed, replaying the day's stresses on a frantic loop, but with a quiet, purposeful conversation with yourself. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a master of this practice, captured its profound importance in his moral letters. He wrote, "I make use of this privilege and daily plead my cause before myself. When the light has been removed from my sight and my wife, long aware of my habit, has become silent, I examine the entire course of my day and I measure my deeds and words." He wasn't just reminiscing, he was conducting a judicial review of his own soul, not as a harsh prosecutor, but as a fair-minded judge seeking truth and growth. The purpose of this evening examination is threefold, and each aspect is crucial for your mental and moral development. First, it serves as a mechanism for continuous growth. By systematically reviewing your actions, you turn every single day into a personalized curriculum for your character. Successes and failures alike become invaluable data points, showing you where your strengths lie and precisely where you need to focus your efforts. Second, it is a powerful tool for stress release. So much of our anxiety comes from unresolved mental clutter, the nagging feeling that we could have handled a situation better, the guilt over a harsh word, the regret over a missed opportunity. The evening review provides a dedicated container for this mental noise. You bring these thoughts into the clear light of conscious examination. You process them with reason, and then you can truly set them down, allowing your mind to rest without the burden of unfinished emotional business. And third, this practice is the ultimate act of self-ownership. It is you taking full responsibility for your life, acknowledging that you are the author of your actions and therefore have the power to edit the script for tomorrow. So, how do you actually perform this review without it becoming an overwhelming or overly complex task? The beauty of the Stoic approach is its elegant simplicity. You don't need a lengthy journal or complicated system. A simple three-question framework can guide you through a profoundly effective examination. Find a quiet moment at the end of your day, perhaps just before sleep, and ask yourself these questions with gentle honesty. The first question is, what did I do well today? This is not about inflating your ego. It is about reinforcing virtuous behavior. Did you act with patience in a frustrating situation? Did you show courage by speaking up for what was right? Did you practice generosity in a small, unseen way? Acknowledging these moments of alignment with your principles is essential. It tells your subconscious mind, this is the direction we are heading, more of this, please. It builds confidence and ensures that your focus isn't solely on your faults, creating a balanced and encouraging self-assessment. The second question requires a bit more courage, but it is where the most significant growth occurs. Where did I fall short of my principles today? The key here is to approach this with the objective curiosity of a scientist analyzing an experiment, not the self-loathing of a criminal standing before a firing squad. The Stoics called this practice animadversio, a careful noticing of the soul. Did you lose your temper in traffic, allowing an external event to dictate your internal state? Did you remain silent when you should have spoken out against an injustice, letting fear override your courage? Did you waste precious time on mindless distraction when you could have been working on something meaningful? The goal is not to flagellate yourself for these missteps, but to simply see them clearly. You are identifying the gap between the person you aspire to be and the actions you actually took. This clear-eyed recognition, free from drama and self-judgment, is the first and most necessary step toward closing that gap. The third and final question is the bridge that leads from reflection to action, turning insight into tangible progress. How can I do better tomorrow? This is where you move from diagnosis to prescription. Based on the shortcoming you identified, what is one specific, manageable adjustment you can make? If you lost your patience today, your plan for tomorrow might be, when I feel that initial surge of irritation, I will take one deep breath before I speak. If you procrastinated on an important task, your plan might be, I will work on that project for just 25 minutes first thing in the morning. This question transforms the review from a passive look backward into an active plan forward. It gives you a concrete intention to carry into the new day, a small mission that aligns your future actions more closely with your deepest values. The entire process celebrating the good, honestly acknowledging the missteps, and formulating a plan for improvement should take no more than 5 or 10 minutes, but its cumulative effect over weeks, months, and years is nothing short of transformational. It is the daily sharpening of your axe, ensuring that you are not just chopping wood with a dull blade, but continually refining your tools and your technique to live a life of ever-increasing virtue and peace. To make this ancient practice your own, the most powerful step you can take is to move from understanding it to actually doing it. So, here is a direct and immediate invitation. Tonight, before you go to sleep, I want you to set aside just 5 minutes. Turn off your screens, find a quiet space, and conduct your first official Stoic evening review. You don't even need to write anything down if you don't want to. You can simply sit with these 3 questions in your mind. What is one thing I did well today? Where did I notice myself falling short of my own standards? And what is one small, specific step I can take tomorrow to close that gap? This is not about achieving perfection in one night. It is about beginning the practice, about initiating that quiet, honest conversation with yourself. You are laying the first stone in what will become a daily pathway to greater self-awareness, resilience, and inner calm. This simple ritual has the power to turn the chaos of your day into a structured lesson, and your restless nights into a foundation for a more purposeful tomorrow. Now, let's reconsider the entire concept of fortune and misfortune, stripping away the layers of superstition and cultural baggage that have accumulated over centuries. In the Stoic framework, fortune or fortuna, as the Romans personified her, is not a fickle goddess who randomly bestows blessings or curses upon us. Instead, think of fortune as the ever-changing, ceaseless flow of external events. It is the constant churn of the world around you. The stock market rises and falls, people offer you praise or criticism, your health flourishes or falters, opportunities appear and vanish. This flow is inherently neutral, amoral, and utterly indifferent to your personal desires. It simply is. The radical Stoic claim, then, is that neither the so-called good nor bad aspects of this flow have any real power to affect the inner state of a person who has cultivated true wisdom. Why? Because the wise person's entire sense of good has been rehoused. It is no longer located in the shifting sands of external events, but is anchored unshakably in the one thing that is always and completely within their power, their own moral virtue, the quality of their character. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, who knew firsthand the brutal whims of fortune from his time as a slave, laid out this liberating perspective with absolute precision. He instructed his students, remember that you ought to behave in life as you would at a banquet. Something is passed around and comes to you. Reach out your hand and take a portion politely. It passes on, do not detain it, or it has not come to you yet. Do not project your desire to meet it, but wait until it comes in front of you. Act similarly with regard to wealth, a position, and sensual enjoyments, that is glory, and you will be a worthy partner of the feasts of the gods at some point. And he went even further, advising, do not seek to have events happen as you want, but want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well. This is the ultimate Stoic posture toward fortune, a serene and graceful participation in the feast of life, taking what comes without desperate clinging and letting what goes without frantic despair. Your well-being is not determined by which dishes are served to you, but by your own dignified conduct at the table. We can see the profound wisdom of this approach when we examine the fleeting nature of what the world typically calls good fortune. Consider the experience of receiving a promotion at work. The initial moment is often a tremendous high. There is the thrill of recognition, the satisfaction of achievement, the anticipation of a higher salary and greater influence. For a few days or weeks, you walk with a spring in your step, buoyed by this external validation. But then, something almost inevitable happens. The new reality sets in. The higher salary becomes your new normal, the baseline against which your expenses now calibrate. The new title brings with it a fresh set of responsibilities, more complex challenges, and often a new layer of office politics to navigate. The glow of the promotion fades, and you find yourself back at your own emotional baseline, perhaps now with even greater pressures than before. The good fortune provided a temporary spike in happiness, but it could not provide a lasting foundation for it. It was like a sugar rush for the ego, intense, pleasurable, but ultimately followed by a crash or a return to a familiar state of wanting. Now, contrast that fleeting external event with the internal, lasting value of the process that likely led to it. The hard work, the integrity, the diligence, the perseverance you demonstrated to earn that promotion. That process, that consistent application of your effort and character, is where your true good resided all along. The promotion itself was merely a potential and welcome byproduct, a preferred indifferent in Stoic terminology. The satisfaction of knowing you acted with competence and honor, that you overcame obstacles, that you grew your skills, that is a form of wealth that no corporate restructuring can ever take away from you. It becomes a permanent part of your inner citadel. The Stoic goal is to transfer your primary source of satisfaction from the unreliable trophy of the promotion to the reliable strength and virtue you built in order to win it. When you do this, you are no longer a supplicant at the throne of fortune, praying for her favor. You become the master of your own satisfaction, and the rise and fall of external events becomes little more than weather passing over the landscape of your soul. This same principle applies with even greater force to what we label misfortune. A sudden job loss, a serious medical diagnosis, a financial reversal. These are the storms of fortune that we most fear. Our natural instinct is to see them as unmitigated disasters, events that ruin our happiness. But the Stoic asks a different question. Does this event prevent me from acting with courage? Does it make it impossible to be just? Does it eradicate my capacity for wisdom or self-control? The answer is always no. In fact, misfortune often provides the most fertile ground for these very virtues to grow. The hardship becomes the arena where your character is tested and strengthened. The bad fortune of a failed business venture can teach you resilience and humility, lessons that might save you from a far greater catastrophe born of arrogance later on. The misfortune of a broken relationship can force a period of introspection that leads to profound personal growth. By refusing to label the event as intrinsically bad for your core self, you disarm it. You can meet it not as a victim, but as a participant in your own training, using the raw material of difficulty to build a more resilient and virtuous person. This perspective invites a deep and personal inquiry into the nature of our own past happiness. Think back to a time in your life that you would classify as a stroke of good fortune. Perhaps it was winning a prize, receiving an unexpected windfall, or embarking on a dream vacation. Now probe that memory with gentle curiosity. How long did the intense happiness from that event truly last? Was the joy a permanent elevation of your life, or was it a brilliant but temporary flash? Did the object of your good fortune, the prize, the money, the experience fundamentally alter your capacity for contentment in a lasting way? Or did you, after a period of adjustment, simply return to your previous baseline of worries and desires, albeit with a new story to tell? This reflection isn't meant to diminish the pleasure of positive events, but to reveal their true nature. They are wonderful guests in the house of your life, but they are not the foundation. The foundation is you, your character, your virtue, your ability to meet all of fortune's visits, whether welcomed or uninvited, with the same unshakable equanimity. By recognizing this, you free yourself from the exhausting roller coaster of elation and despair, and you begin to build a happiness that is not borrowed from external circumstances, but generated from within, a quiet, steady flame that no wind of change can extinguish. In our relentlessly connected world, we often wear our busyness like a badge of honor, filling every spare second with a podcast, a scroll through social media, or a frantic mental to-do list. This constant noise, both external and internal, has become a form of modern armor, a way to shield ourselves from the uncomfortable quiet of our own company. Yet, the Stoics understood that this very armor is what weighs us down, creating a low hum of anxiety that drains our mental energy. They championed a radical alternative, the deliberate cultivation of silence and stillness. This is not simply the absence of sound, but the active pursuit of a quiet mind, a state of inner tranquility where the constant chatter of worries, judgments, and reactive impulses finally settles into a calm, clear pool of awareness. It is in this fertile silence that we can hear the voice of our own reason, untethered from the demands and distractions of the outside world. Marcus Aurelius, who was constantly surrounded by the clamor of political intrigue and military campaigns, knew that his peace depended on his ability to find this stillness within. He wrote in his Meditations, You will find rest from vain fancies if you perform every act in life as though it were your last, laying aside the cares and frivolities of the world and the vanity of those who are moved by this or that. He is pointing to a profound truth. Much of our mental noise is generated by our preoccupation with what is ultimately frivolous, the opinions of others, the pursuit of status, the endless consumption of information that has no real bearing on our character or our duties. The tranquility he speaks of comes from a disciplined focus on what truly matters to our soul and a conscious decision to ignore the rest. This is the essence of Stoic silence, a selective attention that filters out the static of the world to amplify the signal of our own virtuous purpose. We can see the cost of ignoring this practice in the modern phenomenon of information overload. Our minds are not designed to process the relentless fire hose of news alerts, email notifications, and social media updates that we subject them to daily. This constant influx creates a state of cognitive overwhelm, where our brain is perpetually in a reactive mode, scanning for the next threat or the next hit of novelty. This state is chemically identical to a low-grade fight or flight response, keeping our stress hormones elevated and our nervous system on high alert. The pursuit of inner silence is the antidote to this overload. It is the conscious act of unplugging not just from our devices, but from the compulsive need to be constantly informed and entertained. It is giving our overstimulated minds the same rest we would give a tired muscle, allowing it to recover its strength and clarity. A powerful and accessible way to begin this training is to dedicate just 5 minutes each day to the practice of sitting in complete silence. Find a quiet spot where you won't be interrupted, set a timer, and simply sit. You can close your eyes or keep them gently open, but the instruction is simple: do nothing. Don't try to force your mind to be blank. That is itself a form of noise. Instead, allow yourself to become an observer. Notice the thoughts as they arise, a memory from yesterday, a worry about tomorrow, a planning of your dinner. See them as clouds passing through the sky of your awareness. You don't have to follow them or push them away. You simply acknowledge their presence and let them drift on by. The goal is not to achieve a perfect state of emptiness, but to practice disidentifying from the endless stream of mental activity. In those brief 5 minutes, you are reclaiming your attention from its captors. You are building the muscle of mindfulness, which is the foundational skill for a quiet mind. You are proving to yourself that you can exist fully and completely without needing to be constantly doing or consuming. This practice extends powerfully into another area of our lives that generates immense mental noise: our own speech. The Stoics were deeply cautious about the words they used, understanding that unnecessary speech is a significant drain on our vital energy and a common source of regret and complication. Seneca advised, "Be silent for the most part, or if you speak, say only what is necessary and in a few words." And Epictetus warned his students to avoid frequent and unnecessary conversation, noting how easily it can pull us into gossip, complaint, and idle speculation, all of which agitate the mind and distance us from tranquility. Every time we speak without a clear, virtuous purpose, we are not just using up air, we are expending precious mental and emotional resources. We are creating narratives, defending positions, and managing impressions, all of which adds to the internal clutter we are trying to clear. To truly understand the cost of this, I invite you to undertake a simple but revealing observation for the next 24 hours. Make it a personal mission to notice how often you are about to speak without a real need. How many times do you jump into a conversation simply to hear your own voice or to assert your presence? How often do you offer an unsolicited opinion that serves no constructive purpose? How frequently do you engage in gossip or complain about a situation you have no power to change, As you notice this, don't judge yourself, but simply observe the mental energy it takes. Feel the slight tension that arises before you speak unnecessarily, and the subtle drain on your focus after the words have left your mouth. This awareness is the first step toward cultivating a more deliberate and powerful relationship with your own voice. When you choose silence over frivolous speech, you are not being antisocial. You are conserving your energy for the moments when your words can truly carry weight, to offer comfort, to speak a difficult truth, or to contribute something of genuine value. You are practicing the Stoic art of inner silence by first mastering its expression in the outer world, discovering that sometimes the most profound wisdom lies not in what we say, but in what we consciously and peacefully choose not to. Now we come to what is perhaps the most radical and defining claim of the entire Stoic philosophy, a principle that separates it from almost every other system of thought, and if fully embraced, has the power to utterly rewire your understanding of a good life. The Stoics argued with unwavering conviction that virtue, which is moral excellence, the quality of a good and rational character, is the only true good. Its opposite, vice, is the only true evil. Everything else that we spend our lives chasing, worrying about, and celebrating, our health, our wealth, our reputations, our possessions, even the well-being of our own bodies, all of it occupies a completely different category. These things are what the Stoics called preferred indifference. Let's unpack this astonishing idea, because it is the master key that unlocks the door to unshakable equanimity. To call something the sole good means it is the only thing that is always, unconditionally, and inherently beneficial to your flourishing as a human being. Virtue, by this definition, can never harm you. It can never lead you astray. It is the one possession that, once secured, can never be taken from you by any external force. Vice, on the other hand, is the sole evil because it is the only thing that intrinsically corrupts your soul and moves you away from your true nature as a rational and social being. The Roman statesman and philosopher Cicero, whose work on duties was deeply influenced by Stoic teachings, articulated this distinction with powerful clarity. He wrote, "All that is morally right rises from one of four sources. It is concerned with the full perception and intelligent development of the truth, or with the preservation of human society, by giving to every man his due and by observing the faith of contracts, or with the greatness and strength of a noble and invincible spirit, or with the orderliness and moderation of everything that said and done." In this, Cicero is mapping out the territory of virtue. It is about wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. Notice what is absent from his list of what makes a life good. There is no mention of a large bank account, a flawless reputation, or perfect physical health. These things are indifference because in the grand calculus of your moral character, they are neutral. They do not have the power to make you a better or worse person. However, they are preferred because it is perfectly natural and rational to choose health over sickness, comfort over poverty, and a good name over a bad one. The crucial Stoic shift is to understand that while we can prefer these things, we must never make our happiness, our self-worth, or our fundamental peace dependent upon them. This creates a profound psychological firewall against the stress and anxiety that pervades modern life. Consider our culture's default definition of success. It is almost entirely composed of preferred indifference, a high-income career, a certain level of social status, a particular kind of home, a curated lifestyle displayed on social media. When we internalize this external definition, we chain our inner peace to a set of outcomes that are, by their very nature, unstable and ultimately outside our full control. We feel successful and happy when the stock market is up and our social media posts are getting lots of engagement. We feel like failures and become deeply stressed when we face a financial setback or receive public criticism. This is the roller coaster that the Stoic seeks to get off. They are not indifferent to these outcomes in the sense of being cold or unfeeling. They simply recognize that these externals are like the weather. They can be pleasant or stormy, but your core happiness is not determined by them. Your true success is measured by the integrity of your character during both the sunshine and the rain. Did you act with honesty even when it was inconvenient? Did you treat others with fairness even when you could have gotten away with being unjust? Did you face your fears with courage regardless of the outcome? These are the questions that define a truly successful life, and their answers lie entirely within your power. We can see the practical power of this principle when we look at two individuals facing the same external circumstance. Imagine two people who both lose their jobs in a corporate downsizing. The first person has built their entire identity and sense of worth on their title and salary, the preferred indifference. For them, the job loss is a catastrophic evil. It triggers a deep identity crisis, profound anxiety about the future, and potentially even depression. Their world has collapsed because the external prop for their self-esteem has been removed. The second person, who has internalized the Stoic view, also feels the natural disappointment and concern. They preferred having that job and its income. However, their core sense of self is rooted in their virtue. They see the job loss as a neutral event, a preferred indifferent that has been removed. Their fundamental goodness, their resilience, their capacity for hard work, and their moral character remain completely intact. This person is able to navigate the setback with clarity and purpose. They update their resume, reach out to their network, and manage their finances prudently, all while maintaining their inner peace. The event is the same, but the suffering is entirely different because one person mistakenly classified a preferred indifferent as a true good, while the other understood its proper and far less powerful place in the hierarchy of value. This radical reorientation of what truly matters invites a deeply personal and revealing reflection. It asks you to cut through the noise of worldly achievements and consider the essence of the legacy you are building with your life. So let's bring this home with a single, pointed question designed to bypass the ego and speak directly to your core values. If you could only be remembered for one character trait after you are gone, not for your wealth, your professional accomplishments, or your possessions, but for one quality of your soul, what would you want it to be? Would it be your unwavering integrity, that people knew your word was your bond, and that you always did the right thing, even when no one was watching? Would it be your profound compassion, your ability to sit with others in their pain and offer genuine understanding without judgment? Would it be your courage, your willingness to stand up for what was right in the face of opposition or fear? Or perhaps it would be your wisdom, your capacity to see clearly and offer guidance that helped others navigate their own challenges. This question is not a hypothetical game, it is a compass. The trait you choose reveals your own personal definition of virtue, the sole good that you intuitively know matters most. By identifying it, you give yourself a North Star for your actions. In every decision, big or small, you can ask yourself, is what I am about to do aligned with the one trait I wish to be remembered for? This practice ensures that you are investing your life's energy in the one thing that is truly, lastingly good, building a legacy of character that no fluctuation of fortune can ever tarnish or take away. It is a common and deeply damaging misconception that Stoicism requires us to be emotionally cold, to build a wall around our hearts and feel nothing in the face of life's inevitable losses. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Stoics were not robots, they were human beings who felt the sharp sting of grief as acutely as anyone. What they offered was not a philosophy of suppression, but a framework for navigating the landscape of loss with wisdom, so that we can feel our feelings fully without being drowned by them. The Stoic approach to grief is one of profound permission to feel the sadness, the ache of absence, the deep sorrow that comes when someone or something we love is taken from us. But it pairs this permission with a crucial, guiding principle: to feel these emotions rationally. This means we allow the waves of grief to wash over us, but we do not let them drag us out into the ocean of prolonged, destructive suffering, where we lose sight of all other aspects of life. The key is to accept loss as a natural, non-negotiable part of the human contract. Everything we are given is on loan: our relationships, our health, our possessions, our roles. Grief is the price of admission for having loved and valued something deeply, and to refuse to pay that price is to have never truly loved at all. The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his beautiful and compassionate letter Consolation to Marcia, written to a mother who had lost her son, does not tell her to stop weeping. Instead, he guides her toward a perspective that can hold both the pain and a profound sense of gratitude. He writes, "Let us greedily enjoy our friends, because we do not know for how long this privilege will be ours." He is not being morbid, he is being utterly realistic. The Stoic does not grieve less because they loved less. They may even grieve more deeply because they loved with the full, conscious awareness that their time with that person was a temporary, precious gift. The goal is not to eliminate grief, but to transform its character from a state of helpless protest against reality into a sorrow that is clean, clear, and interwoven with a deep thankfulness for the gift that was given, however briefly. This is the critical differentiation between healthy grief and prolonged suffering. Grief is the natural, necessary process of the heart adjusting to a new reality. Prolonged suffering is what happens when the mind gets stuck in a loop of resistance, endlessly replaying the "if only" and the "why me" scenarios, fighting a battle against a past that can never be changed. Stoicism teaches us to complete the first while consciously releasing the second. We can apply this compassionate wisdom to some of the most common and painful losses of modern life, such as the end of a significant relationship or the loss of a job. When a long-term relationship ends, the grief can be overwhelming. It is not just the loss of a person, but the loss of a shared future, a daily companion, and a part of our own identity. The conventional, non-Stoic approach might be to spiral into bitterness, to blame the other person entirely, or to fall into a pit of self-recrimination, replaying every mistake and imagining a different outcome. This is the territory of prolonged suffering. The Stoic approach begins with acceptance. It acknowledges the reality: this chapter is closed. It allows you to feel the full weight of the sadness and the loneliness without judgment. But then it gently guides you to shift your focus. Instead of dwelling exclusively on the pain of the ending, it invites you to actively cultivate gratitude for the relationship itself. What did you learn about yourself through that partnership? What joys did you share that you would not have otherwise experienced? How did that person help you grow, even if the growth was painful in the end? This reframing does not erase the hurt, but it places it inside a larger, more meaningful narrative. The relationship is no longer just a failure. It becomes a vital part of your life's journey, a teacher that offered you specific lessons in love, patience, or self-respect that you now carry forward. The same process applies to the loss of a job, which can feel like a profound personal rejection and a threat to our security and purpose. The initial shock and fear are completely natural. But if we remain stuck in anger at the company or in anxiety about the future, we are in the realm of suffering. The Stoic lens encourages us to move through the initial grief and then to pivot toward a rational assessment and a posture of gratitude. What skills did you gain in that role that are now permanently yours? What did you learn about the kind of work environment you truly thrive in? Did this forced ending perhaps liberate you from a path that was actually misaligned with your deeper values, pushing you towards something more authentic? Perhaps the loss of that particular professional identity creates the necessary space for you to discover a more resilient and multifaceted sense of self, one that is not so dependent on a job title. By finding something, even one small thing, to be grateful for within the loss, you are not pretending the event was wonderful. You are simply asserting your power to mine meaning from difficulty. You are proving that while you cannot control the event, you absolutely control the story you tell about it and the person you choose to become because of it. This is how we honor our grief without becoming its permanent victim, allowing the pain to transform into a deeper wisdom about the impermanent, precious nature of all things. So let's bring this home. I invite you to think of a past loss from your own life. It could be the end of a friendship, the passing of a loved one, a missed opportunity, or any significant ending that once caused you pain. As you hold that memory, see if you can identify one specific thing about that experience, however small, that you can now feel a genuine sense of gratitude for. It might be the strength you discovered in yourself you never knew you had, the clarity it brought about what you truly value, or simply the beautiful memory of a moment of joy that you are privileged to share. In that act of finding the gift within the grief, you are practicing the most compassionate and resilient form of Stoicism, honoring the past without letting it hold your future hostage. Having a clear set of principles to guide your life is one thing, but how do you translate those abstract virtues into concrete, everyday actions? The Stoics had a powerful and practical answer to this challenge. They didn't just rely on their own willpower. They actively enlisted the help of mentors, even if those mentors were figures from history or literature. They understood that we are deeply influenced by the company we keep, and so they consciously chose to keep the company of sages. This is the profound practice of selecting role models, of having what Seneca called a guarding preceptor always at your side. In one of his moral letters, he offers this brilliant advice. Choose a master whose life, conversation, and soul-expressing face have satisfied you. Picture him always to yourself as your protector or your pattern. For we need someone who will set up a standard for our character by his personal authority. He isn't talking about finding a live-in guru, but about selecting an ideal exemplar, a person whose character is so compelling that you can summon their image in your mind's eye whenever you face a difficult choice, asking yourself, what would they do in this situation? The genius of this approach lies in making virtue tangible and relatable. It's one thing to aspire to be courageous in the abstract. It's another thing entirely to ask, how would Nelson Mandela have conducted himself in this conflict? Or what would my grandmother, with her immense kindness, say about how I'm treating this person? A role model gives a face and a story to the principles you are trying to embody. They serve as a living, breathing blueprint for the person you are striving to become. For the Stoics, these figures weren't distant, untouchable idols. They were seen as older, wiser siblings on the same path, whose examples could provide immediate guidance and inspiration. Marcus Aurelius constantly referenced figures like his adoptive father, Antoninus Pius, in his Meditations, meticulously listing the man's virtues, his calm demeanor, his unwavering sense of duty, his restraint in anger, as a way of reminding himself of the standard he was meant to uphold. By keeping these exemplars always in your sight, as Seneca advises, you are effectively creating a personal advisory board for your soul, a council of the wise that you can consult at any moment, completely free of charge and available 24 hours a day. So how do you start building your own personal pantheon of sages? the first step is a conscious and deliberate search. Look beyond the shallow metrics of fame or wealth and focus squarely on character. Who do you know, either from history or from your own life, who embodies a specific virtue you find yourself struggling to cultivate? Perhaps you admire the relentless integrity of someone like Eleanor Roosevelt, who consistently spoke truth to power despite immense pressure. Maybe you are inspired by the profound compassion of Fred Rogers, who treated every single person, especially children, with unwavering dignity and respect. Your role model doesn't have to be a globally famous figure. It could be a teacher from your past who demonstrated incredible patience, a colleague who handles stress with unshakable poise, or a family member whose generosity seems to know no bounds. The key is to identify the specific, concrete qualities that you admire. Don't just say you admire Abraham Lincoln. Identify that you admire his capacity for empathy and his willingness to assemble a cabinet of his political rivals, a stunning display of confidence and a commitment to the greater good. The more precise you are about the virtue, the more useful that role model becomes as a guide for your own conduct. To make this practice truly come alive, I want to suggest a tangible and creative project: the creation of a personal virtue board. This is a physical or digital space. It could be a section of a bulletin board, a page in a notebook, or a private Pinterest board where you curate the wisdom and images of your chosen role models. This isn't about creating a shrine to other people, but about building a visual and textual toolkit for your own character development. On this board, you might pin a picture of Marcus Aurelius next to a quote of his about accepting obstacles with grace. You might include a photograph of your kind-hearted grandfather alongside a short story that captures his spirit. You could add a news article about a modern-day activist whose courage in the face of injustice takes your breath away. The act of curating this board is in itself a Stoic exercise. It forces you to clarify what you value most, and then, by reviewing it regularly, you are actively shaping your subconscious mind, feeding it a steady diet of virtuous examples that will naturally begin to influence your thoughts, your decisions, and ultimately, your actions throughout the day. This practice transforms the often daunting journey of self-improvement from a solitary trek into a guided tour. You are no longer figuring it all out on your own. You are walking a path that has been blazed by others. When you are tempted to lose your temper, you can recall the serene face of the Dalai Lama and the power of forgiveness. When you are afraid to take a creative risk, you can summon the defiant spirit of someone like Frida Kahlo, who channeled immense physical pain into groundbreaking art. When you feel the pull of laziness or procrastination, you can think of the relentless work ethic of a scientist like Marie Curie, driven by a passion for discovery that transcended personal comfort. Your role models become a source of strength, a whisper of encouragement in your ear when you need it most. They prove that the virtues you aspire to are not impossible ideals, but lived realities, achieved by human beings with their own flaws and challenges, which makes their accomplishments all the more inspiring and, crucially, attainable for you. To truly anchor this idea and make it a part of your own philosophical toolkit, I want to invite you to engage in a simple but powerful act of reflection right now. I want you to name one person, either from history or from your own life, whom you genuinely admire for their character. It doesn't have to be a perfect person, no one is. But identify someone whose essence, whose way of being in the world, resonates deeply with you. Now, go beyond just naming them. Identify one specific, standout virtue that this person exemplifies. Is it the unwavering honesty of a parent who always told you the truth, even when it was difficult? Is it the profound humility of a renowned author who never sought the spotlight? Is it the incredible resilience of a friend who has overcome tremendous adversity with grace and even humor? By naming the person and pinpointing the precise quality you admire, you are taking the first and most important step in the Stoic practice of emulation. You are giving yourself a North Star for a particular aspect of your character, a living example you can carry with you as you strive to build your own inner citadel, brick by virtuous brick. Consider for a moment where your mind tends to travel when you feel the familiar grip of anxiety. It's almost always projecting itself into an uncertain future, isn't it? It's spinning elaborate, often terrifying, stories about what might go wrong tomorrow, next week, or next year. And when a heavy sadness descends, where does your mind typically dwell? It's almost always rummaging through the dusty archives of the past, replaying old mistakes, missed opportunities, and words that can never be taken back. This is a profound psychological truth. Anxiety is the interest we pay on a debt we may never owe, a debt to the future, while depression is the prison of a past we can no longer change. The Stoics, with their unflinching focus on what is real and actionable, identified the only place where we are truly alive and powerful, the razor's edge of the present moment. It is in this fleeting, ever-renewing now that we can actually live, act, and find a peace that is entirely inaccessible when our consciousness is time traveling into realms of pure imagination or unchangeable history. This is not a call to forget our past lessons or to cease planning for the future. It is instead an invitation to reclaim the seat of our attention, to pull it back from the phantom zones of yesterday and tomorrow, and anchor it firmly in the tangible reality right in front of us. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, amidst the immense pressures of ruling an empire, constantly drilled this practice into his own mind. He wrote in his private journal, "Confine yourself to the present." In another passage, he expands on this with breathtaking clarity. Don't let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Don't try to picture everything bad that could possibly happen. Stick with the situation at hand and ask, why is this so unbearable? Why can't I endure it? You'll be embarrassed to answer. His insight reveals that our suffering is almost always amplified by the stories we tell ourselves about the present moment, stories that are usually colored by our fears of the future or regrets from the past. By deliberately narrowing our focus to the single task immediately before us, we strip away those layers of mental commentary. We are left with the raw, manageable data of the present, and we discover that we are far more capable of enduring and acting within it than our panicked, time-traveling mind would have us believe. Think of your attention as a brilliant, powerful spotlight. When that spotlight is fractured, shining a little on the memory of an awkward conversation from yesterday, a little on a work deadline next month, and a little on the television show you're half watching, its power is diffused. It creates a shadowy, chaotic stage where anxiety and distraction can easily thrive. But when you swing that spotlight to focus with full, undivided intensity on a single, present moment activity, something remarkable happens. The stage is illuminated with perfect clarity. The shadows of past and future recede, and you are left with just the activity itself and the quiet, capable presence you are bringing to it. This is how we reclaim our power from worry. Worry is fundamentally a feeling of powerlessness, a sense that we are at the mercy of events we cannot control. But by choosing to pour our entire being into the one thing we are actually doing right now, we are exercising a profound form of control. We are controlling the one thing we truly can, the quality and focus of our attention in this very moment. This act is an immediate and potent antidote to the feeling of being overwhelmed. Let's make this beautifully practical with an example so mundane we often consider it a chore: washing the dishes. For most of us, this is a task we rush through on autopilot. Our body is at the sink, but our mind is already at the meeting we have tomorrow, or rehashing an argument from earlier, or planning our weekend. We are anywhere but there. Now try it the Stoic way. The next time you wash dishes, make that activity your entire world. Feel the warmth of the water on your skin. Notice the slippery texture of the soap suds and the specific shape of each plate and glass. Listen to the sound of the water running and the clink of the dishes as you place them in the rack. When your mind inevitably wanders off to some other time and place, and it will gently, without any judgment or frustration, guide it back to the sensation of the warm water and the sight of the clean dish in your hand. You are not just washing dishes, you are practicing the art of being present. You are training your mind to inhabit your life as it is actually happening, rather than living in a parallel universe of your thoughts about your life. This simple shift can transform a boring chore into a small sanctuary of mindfulness, a few minutes where the noisy world of your worries is silenced by the simple, sensory reality of the task at hand. The same profound principle applies to something as basic as taking a walk. How often do you walk somewhere with your head down, scrolling through your phone, or lost in a labyrinth of internal planning and fretting? You could be walking through the most beautiful park, but if your attention is captured by your digital screen or your internal monologue, you might as well be in a gray, windowless room. The Stoic practice would be to leave your phone in your pocket and to walk with the sole intention of walking. Feel the solid connection of your feet with the ground with each step. Notice the play of light and shadow through the trees. Observe the colors of the flowers in a garden you pass, or the architecture of the buildings on your street. Listen to the layered sounds of the city or the quiet rustle of leaves in a breeze. When you walk in this way, you are not just transporting your body from point A to point B. You are immersing yourself in the rich, textured reality of your own existence. You are collecting moments of actual lived experience, rather than allowing your life to become a blur of mental preoccupation punctuated by brief moments of physical activity. This is the gift of the present moment. It is the only place where life is truly, authentically happening, and it is a gift that is perpetually being offered to us, over and over again, in the form of the next breath, the next step, the next simple task. To truly integrate this wisdom, the most effective approach is not to think about it, but to directly experience it. So here is a simple, direct instruction, a small experiment in reclaiming your attention. For the next 5 minutes, I invite you to choose one ordinary activity and give it your complete and undivided attention. It could be sipping a cup of tea and doing nothing else, just feeling the warmth of the cup in your hands, smelling the aroma, and tasting each sip with your full awareness. It could be listening to a single piece of music without doing anything else and following the journey of the melody from start to finish. It could be simply sitting and observing your own breath, feeling the air move in and out of your body. For these 5 minutes, let the past and the future fall away. There is only this. There is only the tea, the music, the breath. When your mind wanders, as it is wired to do, just notice that it has wandered and gently escort it back to the chosen anchor of your attention. This is not a test you can fail, it is a practice you can begin. In these 5 minutes, you are not just doing a task, you are exercising your most fundamental human freedom. The freedom to choose where you place your awareness, and in doing so, you are stepping out of the phantom realms of time and into the vibrant, peaceful, and powerful reality of the now. Now, let's turn to a challenge that touches almost every one of us in this hyper-connected, performance-driven world: our relationship with the opinions of others. The Stoic ideal of the sage presents a figure who remains profoundly unmoved by both the sharp sting of public censure and the sweet, seductive sound of popular applause. This isn't a posture of arrogant indifference, but the natural outcome of a soul that has built its self-worth on an unshakable internal foundation. When your sense of value is derived entirely from your own moral choices, from whether you acted with courage, justice, and integrity, then the cheers and the boos from the crowd simply lose their power to define you. They become like the weather passing over a mountain. The mountain acknowledges the storm and the sunshine, but its fundamental identity and strength are not altered by either. This radical internalization of self-worth is one of the most powerful antidotes we have to the modern plagues of social anxiety and the exhausting compulsion to be a people-pleaser, freeing us from the frantic need to manage everyone else's perception of who we are. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, who had known the depths of slavery and therefore understood true freedom better than most, delivered a line that remains profoundly provocative to this day. He said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." And in the context of praise, he argued that it is impossible to be both a person who craves the applause of the crowd and a truly wise person. Why? Because the moment you start to rely on external validation for your sense of well-being, you have handed over the reins of your happiness to a fickle and unreliable master. You are no longer in control of your own inner state. If you perform a good deed primarily for the social recognition it will bring, you have, in a Stoic sense, corrupted the virtue of the act itself. The action is no longer good because it was the right thing to do. It is now a transaction, a performance aimed at eliciting a specific response from your audience. The wise person, in contrast, does the right thing simply because it is right. The subsequent praise or blame is a secondary event, an external phenomenon that has no bearing on the moral quality of the choice that was already made. Your internal scorecard is the only one that matters. We can bring this powerful principle to life by examining a situation nearly every working adult faces, receiving critical feedback from a manager or a colleague. The conventional, non-Stoic reaction is often a defensive, emotional whirlwind. Your heart might sink, your face might flush, and a voice in your head might immediately start shouting about unfairness or launching a counterattack against the person delivering the feedback. Your entire sense of professional competence and self-esteem feels like it's hanging in the balance, determined by this one piece of external evaluation. The Stoic approach invites a complete reframing of this experience. The first step is to consciously separate the feedback from your core self-worth. The criticism is not an assessment of your entire being. It is data about a specific action, a particular project, or a set of behaviors. Your self-esteem, if it is built on the Stoic model, is rooted in your enduring character traits, your willingness to learn, your capacity for hard work, your integrity, not in the flawless execution of a single task. From this place of internal stability, you can now engage with the criticism not as a threat, but as a potential source of useful information. You can put on the hat of a curious scientist examining a new specimen. Your task is to sift through the feedback with calm discernment, asking a simple set of questions. Is there any truth in what this person is saying? Is there a kernel of valuable insight here that I can use to improve my skills or my performance? Does this feedback align with my own observations, or does it seem to come from a place of misunderstanding or a different set of priorities? If you find a nugget of truth, you can accept it with gratitude, not as a blow to your ego, but as a gift that allows you to grow. You can then take that specific, actionable piece of information and use it to become more effective at your job, thereby strengthening your professional capabilities, a genuine good that is now entirely within your possession. If, after this rational examination, you conclude that the criticism is unfounded or based on a misunderstanding, you can simply let it go. It becomes irrelevant noise, like a leaf blowing past in the wind. It does not require a dramatic defense or an hours-long emotional recovery because it never touched the core of who you are. Your peace remains intact because you remembered that your value is not determined by a single performance review, but by the consistent quality of your effort and your character over time. This same principle applies with equal force, though in a more seductive form, to the experience of praise. When we receive lavish compliments or public acclaim, the Stoic caution is to receive it lightly, like a pleasant fragrance that wafts by and then dissipates. Enjoy the moment, but do not cling to it. Do not make it a part of your identity. Why? Because if you become addicted to the high of external praise, you will inevitably shape your future actions to seek more of it. You will start choosing projects that are likely to win applause rather than those that align with your deepest values. You might avoid taking necessary risks or speaking difficult truths for fear of losing that precious social approval. You become a slave to your audience, constantly tuning your behavior to their reactions. The Stoic sage understands that praise is just as unreliable and outside of their control as criticism. Today's hero can be tomorrow's villain in the court of public opinion. By finding your satisfaction in the virtuous execution of the work itself, in the diligence you applied, the creativity you expressed, the problems you solved, you free yourself from this roller coaster. The praise is a pleasant bonus, but your fundamental satisfaction was secured the moment you completed the work to the best of your ability, according to your own internal standards of excellence. To truly integrate this wisdom, it is valuable to turn the lens inward on your own past experiences. I want you to take a moment and recall a specific time when you were overly affected, for better or worse, by the praise or criticism of another person. Perhaps it was a time when a critical comment from a family member ruined your entire week, sending you into a spiral of self-doubt. Or maybe it was a moment of public recognition that gave you a soaring sense of confidence that felt incredible at the time, but then left you feeling oddly empty or anxious when the spotlight moved on. Now, I invite you to gently reframe that memory from a Stoic perspective. In the case of the criticism, can you see how you might have mistakenly allowed that external opinion to define your internal state? What if you had been able to receive it as mere data, sifting it for useful insight while letting the rest fall away, secure in the knowledge that your worth was never truly on the line? And for the praise, can you see how the fleeting high depended entirely on an external source? What if your primary focus had been on the integrity of your own effort, so that the subsequent applause was simply a delightful but non-essential decoration on a job you already knew was well done? This act of reframing is not about erasing the past, but about learning from it. It is a practice in reclaiming your emotional sovereignty, ensuring that your inner peace is built on the solid ground of your own virtuous choices, rather than the shifting sands of other people's ever-changing opinions. There is a powerful and deeply practical bridge connecting the ancient philosophy of Stoicism with one of the most popular modern lifestyle movements, minimalism. At first glance, they might seem like distant cousins, one a school of thought from Greco-Roman antiquity, the other a contemporary response to consumer culture. But when you look closer, you see that modern minimalism is, in many ways, a direct and vibrant application of the Stoic discipline of desire. It is the physical manifestation of the Stoic quest to want less, to find freedom not in acquisition but in release. The core idea is elegantly simple. By consciously choosing to own fewer possessions and to desire fewer things, we create vast expanses of mental space, and in doing so, we systematically dismantle three major sources of modern anxiety. We reduce the constant burden of maintenance, the cleaning, organizing, repairing, and insuring of all our stuff. We weaken the toxic habit of comparison, where we measure our worth and our happiness against the curated lives and possessions of others. And we immunize ourselves against the fear of potential loss, that low-grade dread that whispers, What if something happens to all of this? The Roman philosopher Seneca, who navigated a world of extreme wealth, saw this truth with stunning clarity. He wrote, "Riches have enslaved mankind." He wasn't speaking metaphorically. He observed how the pursuit and protection of wealth and possessions creates a prison of worry. We don't own our things, they end up owning us. Every new object we bring into our lives comes with an invisible leash. It demands our time, our attention, and a small piece of our psychic energy. That new car requires payments, insurance, washing, and maintenance, and it introduces the new worry of it being scratched or stolen. The latest smartphone or gadget immediately creates anxiety about it becoming obsolete, broken, or lost. Our homes become not sanctuaries of peace, but storage units for 1,000 little anxieties. Seneca continues, "To have what is essential is to have all we need." This is the minimalist and Stoic ideal in a single sentence. It's not about living in an empty white box with a single bowl. It's about conducting a ruthless audit of our lives to distinguish the essential from the non-essential, and then having the courage to let the non-essential go. When we do this, we aren't practicing deprivation, we are practicing liberation. We are freeing up the mental RAM that was being used to manage, worry about, and desire our possessions, and we can redirect that precious cognitive capacity toward what truly matters: our relationships, our growth, our creativity, and our peace of mind. This philosophy translates into powerful, actionable steps that you can begin today. One of the most effective and sustainable rules to adopt is the one in, one out principle. It's beautifully simple. For every new item you bring into your home, a new shirt, a new book, a new kitchen gadget, you commit to finding one similar item to remove. This isn't a drastic purge that triggers a fear of scarcity. It's a gentle, consistent discipline that builds awareness. It forces you to pause before every purchase and ask, is this new thing valuable enough to justify taking up space, both physically and mentally, and is it worth the trade of something I already own? This practice transforms consumption from a mindless habit into a conscious choice. It naturally slows down the influx of clutter and trains your desire muscle. You start to become more selective, more intentional, and you begin to appreciate and use the possessions you already have with greater depth and gratitude. The one in, one out rule is a daily meditation on the Stoic concept of sufficiency, a practical reminder that more is not better, and that every addition to our life should be weighed against its true cost in attention and peace. In our digital age, this minimalist approach is perhaps even more critical when applied to our virtual spaces. Our smartphones and computers are not just tools, they are environments, and most of us are living in a state of digital hoarding that creates a constant, low-level cognitive drain. A digital declutter is a modern form of Stoic practice. Start with your phone, go through your apps one by one. How many of them do you actually use? How many are just icons that silently demand your attention, sending notifications that fracture your focus and pull you away from the present moment? Delete them, be ruthless. Then look at your computer desktop and your download folder. The countless files, the half-finished projects, the random screenshots. This digital detritus creates visual noise that makes it harder to find what you actually need and to think clearly. Create a simple, logical filing system and either file what's important or delete what isn't. Unsubscribe from email newsletters you never read. This process is not just organizational housekeeping, it is the creation of digital tranquility. Every deleted app, every cleared folder, is a reclaimed piece of your attention. It's a declaration that your mind is a sacred space, and you will no longer allow it to be treated like a public billboard for every app developer and advertiser. A clean digital environment supports a clear, focused, and stoic mind, one that is better equipped to engage with the world intentionally rather than reactively. To truly feel the liberating effect of this stoic minimalist fusion, I invite you to undertake a simple but revealing exercise right where you are. Sometime in the next 24 hours, take a slow, deliberate walk through your own living space. This isn't a frantic cleaning spree, it is a mindful reconnaissance mission. As you move from room to room, I want you to play a game of spotting just 3 items. Look for 3 specific things that no longer serve a vital purpose or bring you genuine joy. They might be objects that are purely decorative but that you no longer even see, that have become part of the visual static. They could be gadgets tucked away in a drawer that you haven't used in years. They might be books you know you will never read again, or clothes you keep holding onto for a version of yourself that no longer exists. The goal is not to fill a garbage bag instantly, but to simply identify them. As you point out each one to yourself, notice the subtle mental shift that occurs. You are not just looking at a thing, you are looking at a decision you have been postponing, a tiny anchor holding you in the past, or a small monument to a desire that has long since faded. The act of identification is the first and most important step. It is you, the rational part of your mind, reasserting authority over your environment. By naming these 3 items, you have begun the process of release. You have taken a concrete step toward creating not just more physical space in your home, but more mental clarity and freedom in your life, proving that the simplest path to a richer inner world often involves courageously letting go of the outer one. Now, let's turn to one of the most misunderstood and yet most transformative goals in the entire Stoic framework, a concept known as Apatheia. If you hear that word and immediately think of our modern term apathy, a kind of numb indifference or a lack of care about the world, it's time for a crucial and liberating correction. Stoic apatheia is not emotional emptiness. It is not about becoming a cold, unfeeling statue. Quite the opposite. It is about achieving a state of profound emotional freedom, specifically freedom from the tyranny of what the Stoics called the passions, those unhealthy, irrational, and overwhelming emotional storms that hijack our reason and plunge us into suffering. We're talking about the corrosive heat of rage, the gnawing ache of envy, the gripping claws of obsessive fear, and the desperate attachment to desires that, when unmet, feel like a personal catastrophe. These passions are not just feelings that happen to us. The Stoics saw them as sicknesses of the soul, disorders of judgment that take a small spark of an impression and turn it into a raging forest fire of distress. The goal of Apatheia is to become the calm, clear-eyed captain of your own inner sea, able to navigate even the fiercest emotional squalls without being capsized by them. The ancient Stoic philosopher Chrysippus provided the crucial psychological insight that makes this possible. He taught that passions are not mysterious forces that invade us from the outside. They are, at their root, judgments. They are acts of our own reasoning faculty, albeit reasoning that is hasty, flawed, and assented to without proper examination. A passion is born in a single, lightning-fast moment when we receive an impression, say, a critical comment from a colleague, and we immediately, reflexively, give our inner agreement to a specific and often catastrophic interpretation of it. We don't just hear the words, we judge them to mean I am being disrespected, or my competence is under attack, or this is an unbearable injustice. That judgment, that internal verdict, is what then unleashes the full physiological and emotional cascade of anger. The event itself was neutral. It was our own rushed and faulty judgment that created the emotional poison. Apatheia, then, is the state of having trained your faculty of judgment to pause, to question these initial impressions, and to refuse to give its assent to interpretations that are inflated, irrational, and ultimately harmful. It is the cultivation of a mind that sees reality clearly without the distorting lens of panic or desire. Think of it this way: imagine you are on an airplane flying through a violent storm. The aircraft is being tossed by powerful turbulence, lightning flashes outside the window, and the wings are shuddering. In the cabin, the passengers are gripped by fear. Their hearts are racing, their knuckles are white, they are gasping with every jolt. They are in the grip of a passion, the passion of fear. Their judgment, based on incomplete information and a feeling of helplessness, is that they are in imminent mortal danger. Now shift your perspective to the cockpit. The pilot is experiencing the exact same physical reality, the same turbulence, the same lightning, the same shuddering plane. But her emotional state is completely different. She is focused, calm, and clear-headed. She is not devoid of feeling. She feels a deep sense of concentration and responsibility. But she is free from the paralyzing passion of terror. Why? Because her judgment is based on knowledge and experience. She understands the mechanics of the storm. She trusts the integrity of the aircraft, and she knows she has the training to navigate the situation. The Stoic ideal of Apatheia is to be the pilot of your own soul, not the panicked passenger. The storms of life, the criticisms, the losses, the frustrations will always come. The goal is not to stop the storm, but to develop the skill and the calm judgment to fly through it without losing your bearings or your inner peace. This state of clear-sighted calm is what allows for truly virtuous action. When you are in the grip of a blinding rage, your capacity for justice vanishes. You are likely to say or do something cruel and disproportionate. When you are consumed by obsessive fear, your courage is extinguished and you retreat from necessary challenges. When you are eaten alive by envy, your ability to feel genuine happiness for others and contentment for yourself is destroyed. Apatheia clears the fog of these destructive emotions, allowing your better nature, your inherent wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation to take the helm. It creates the mental space for you to respond to the world from a place of principle, not from a place of primal reaction. This is why the Stoics saw it as the foundation of the good life. It's not about feeling nothing. It's about ensuring that your feelings are proportionate, rational, and aligned with what is truly good, so that you can act with integrity and clarity no matter what is happening around you. To make this abstract concept intensely personal and practical, let's turn the spotlight inward for a moment. I want you to identify one specific passion that frequently disrupts your own peace. Don't reach for the most dramatic example, just pick a common one. Perhaps it's a quick flash of irritation that flares up when you're stuck in traffic, or a simmering anxiety about an upcoming social event where you won't know many people. Maybe it's a pang of envy that strikes when you see a peer celebrating an achievement on social media, or a lingering resentment you hold towards someone for a past offense. Choose one that you recognize as a familiar, unwelcome guest in your mind. Now, with the insight of Chrysippus, I want you to gently investigate the underlying judgment that is fueling this passion. When you feel that surge of road rage, what is the silent sentence your mind is pronouncing? Is it, "This traffic is ruining my day," or "These other drivers are idiots who shouldn't be on the road," or "I must not be late, it would be a disaster"? When you feel that social anxiety, what is the core judgment? Is it, "I will be awkward and people will judge me," or "I won't know what to say and I'll be exposed as boring"? When the envy arises, what is the story you're telling yourself? Is it, "Their success means I am a failure," or "They don't deserve that and I do"? By bringing this hidden judgment into the light of your conscious awareness, you perform the first and most powerful act of Stoic therapy. You see the passion not as an unstoppable force of nature, but as the logical consequence of a specific thought that you have the power to question, to challenge, and ultimately to release. This brings us to a concept that might sound abstract at first, but which offers one of the most profound sources of comfort and purpose in the entire Stoic system: the belief in a universal law. The ancient Stoics looked at the cosmos from the perfect orbits of the planets to the changing of the seasons and the intricate patterns of a single leaf, and they saw not randomness, but a magnificent, rational order. They called this intelligent, organizing principle the logos. You can think of it as the underlying logic of the universe, a kind of divine reason that permeates and governs all of existence. For them, this wasn't a matter of blind faith, but a conclusion drawn from observing the breathtaking harmony and interdependence of nature. To live in accordance with this logos, then, is to align your individual will with the will of the whole cosmos. It is to trust that even in the midst of what appears to be chaos and suffering, there is a coherent, larger pattern at work, one that we, from our limited human perspective, cannot always see or understand. This trust is the ultimate antidote to the exhausting burden of feeling like you have to control everything. So much of our stress comes from the arrogant and ultimately futile belief that we are the sole authors of our destiny, that we must micromanage every outcome and force life to conform to our personal blueprint. We fight against reality, we rage against delays, we despair over unexpected setbacks, all while expending colossal amounts of energy in a battle we are destined to lose. The Stoic recognition of the logos invites us to lay down that heavy armor. It asks us to shift from a posture of control to one of cooperation. Imagine you are an actor who has been given a role in a vast, complex, and beautifully written play. You didn't write the script, you didn't design the sets, and you certainly don't get to direct the other actors. Your one and only job is to play your assigned part to the absolute best of your ability. Trying to control the entire production is not only impossible, it's a sure path to madness and misery. Your freedom and your peace are found in mastering your own performance, in delivering your lines with conviction and virtue, regardless of what the other actors do or what twists the plot may take. Marcus Aurelius, who carried the unimaginable weight of ruling an empire, constantly returned to this idea to ground himself. He wrote in his Meditations, "Accept the tasks that are assigned to you by the whole as your portion." Let's sit with the profound simplicity of that instruction. He isn't saying to be passive. He is calling for active, wholehearted acceptance of your specific place and duties within the grand scheme of things. Your portion is your unique set of circumstances, your body, your family, your job, your talents, and even your challenges. These are not random accidents. From the Stoic perspective, they are the specific materials you have been given to work with by the universe itself. Your life's purpose is not to complain about the quality of your materials or to wish you had been given someone else's. It is to take your particular portion and to craft something strong, beautiful, and virtuous from it. This perspective transforms the very meaning of your life's work. You are no longer just a solitary individual grinding away. You are a conscious, willing participant in the expression of a universal order, playing your unique note in the symphony of existence. We can apply this majestic philosophical idea to the most ordinary aspects of our daily lives, and in doing so, we can completely revolutionize our experience of them. Consider your job. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeing work as merely a burden, a series of tasks you have to endure to pay the bills. You might feel like a cog in a machine, stressed by demanding bosses, difficult clients, and endless deadlines. Now reframe that through the lens of the universal law. Your job is not just a job, it is one of your primary roles in the cosmic play. It is your current portion. Whether you are a CEO, a teacher, a cashier, or a stay-at-home parent, your workplace is your stage. The question shifts from, how can I get through this day? To, how can I play this role with excellence and virtue today? Can you bring more diligence to your tasks, seeing them as a contribution to a larger whole? Can you interact with your colleagues and customers with greater justice and kindness, recognizing that they, too, are playing their assigned parts? Can you face the inevitable frustrations and obstacles with the courage and resilience of a character being tested? This shift doesn't change the external realities of your job, but it changes your entire relationship to it. It infuses mundane duties with profound meaning. You are no longer just filing reports or serving coffee. You are practicing the cosmic virtues of focus, service, and integrity. This same powerful reframing applies with even greater force to our family duties. The responsibilities of being a parent, a child, a sibling, or a partner can sometimes feel like a relentless series of demands, pulling us away from what we'd rather be doing. We can resent the constant needs, the emotional labor, the sheer weight of obligation. But seen through the Stoic lens, these relationships are not accidental burdens. They are among the most important roles we will ever be assigned. They are a fundamental part of our portion from the whole. The universe has placed these specific people in your care, and your sacred duty is to play your part within these relationships with love, patience, and unwavering commitment. The chaotic family dinner, the late-night worry about a child, the difficult conversation with a parent, these are not interruptions to your real life. They are your real life, the very stage upon which you are meant to practice the virtues of loyalty, compassion, and selfless love. When you approach these duties not as chores, but as a role to be performed with excellence, a sense of burden lifts and is replaced by a deep sense of purpose. You are fulfilling your human function as a social being, contributing to the health of the universal body by strengthening the bonds of your own small part of it. To make this concept of cosmic role-playing your own, I want to offer you a direct and practical question for reflection. What is one of your primary roles in life right now? Are you a mentor, a caregiver, a creator, a student, a community organizer, a friend who others rely on? Identify that one role that feels most active and significant in your current chapter. Now take it a step further. How can you fulfill that role with more virtue today, not next week or next year, but in the next 24 hours? If your role is that of a parent, your virtuous action for today might be the simple but profound act of listening to your child for 5 uninterrupted minutes, offering them the full gift of your attention. If your role is that of an employee, it might be tackling that one difficult task you've been avoiding with total focus and integrity, seeing it through to completion. If your role is that of a neighbor, it could be performing one small, unseen act of kindness for someone on your street. By consciously connecting your daily actions to the larger purpose of playing your universal role well, you transform ordinary life into a continuous practice of meaning and peace. You are no longer just going through the motions. You are actively cooperating with the logic of the cosmos, trusting the larger story while taking absolute responsibility for the quality of your own performance within it. And so we arrive at the end of our journey, having walked through the minds of ancient philosophers and uncovered a treasury of wisdom that feels startlingly modern. If there is one thread that weaves through every principle we've explored, from the foundational dichotomy of control to the cosmic acceptance of Amor, Fati, it is this profound shift from trying to command the world to mastering our inner realm. We have seen how our energy is most wisely spent not in raging against the traffic, the criticism, or the unexpected setbacks, but in carefully tending to our judgments, our desires, and our actions. This is the ultimate source of power, the realization that while we may not choose the events that unfold around us, we always have a choice in how we meet them. The resilience we cultivate through practices like negative visualization isn't a pessimistic shield, but a grateful heart in training, one that appreciates what we have by consciously acknowledging its temporary nature. And the profound peace we discover is not found in the accumulation of possessions or accolades, but in the quiet dignity of living virtuously, of aligning our actions with what is right and good, regardless of the applause or silence that follows. These are not abstract intellectual concepts to be debated in a classroom. They are practical, battle-tested secrets for forging an unshakable equanimity in the chaos of modern life. They are tools for the school drop-off line, the tense boardroom, the quiet middle of the night when worries feel largest. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who knew more than most about facing circumstances beyond his control, offered a final, unifying key that can lock all these lessons into place. He said, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish, but wish for everything to happen as it actually does, and your life will be serene." This is the essence of the Stoic art of living. It is the active, courageous embrace of reality as it is, not as we demand it to be. It is the decision to flow with the current of life, using your energy to navigate skillfully rather than exhausting yourself by swimming upstream. In this single wish to accept what is, you find the serenity that comes from ending the war with reality. Remember, the goal is not to achieve a state of perfect, permanent Zen where nothing ever bothers you again. That is a destination that doesn't exist. The path to an unshakable mind is a daily practice, a continuous and compassionate return to these principles. It is in the small moments, choosing patience in the grocery line, practicing gratitude for a simple meal, suspending judgment when a friend lets you down, that the inner citadel is built brick by brick. This is a lifelong journey of showing up for yourself, of falling short and trying again, of gradually rewiring your automatic responses from ones of reaction to ones of wise response. The transformation happens not in a single, dramatic leap, but in the quiet, consistent accumulation of small, virtuous choices. To make this wisdom your own, I want to leave you with a simple, actionable invitation. Look back over the principles we've discussed and choose just one to practice with intention for the coming week. Perhaps it is the discipline of action, where you focus entirely on doing the right thing in your work or relationships, letting go of your attachment to the outcome. Maybe it is the practice of Memento Mori, using the reminder of life's brevity to instantly dissolve petty worries and focus on meaningful connection. Or it could be as simple as implementing a nightly review, spending 5 minutes before bed to reflect on where you succeeded and where you can grow tomorrow. Carry this one principle with you as your theme for the next 7 days. Observe how it changes your experience of stress, your interactions with others, and your relationship with yourself. And then I warmly encourage you to share your experiences in the comments below. Tell us which principle you chose and what you discovered. In sharing our journeys, we become a community of modern sages, learning from and supporting one another as we each build a life of greater purpose, resilience, and profound